The following is intended for mature audiences only. Discretion is advised.
Thank you for downloading this episode of So What Do You Really Do, the podcast where I, your host, Deadair Dennis Maler, speak with artists and entertainers about their day jobs. My guest today is actually a Uber driver, comedian. He sold copy machines, fax machines, and all stuff like that. Good friend of mine, Don Zollo, is on the podcast today. And it was really interesting for me to bring him in because I wanted to talk to somebody who was an Uber driver, and maybe one day I'll have somebody who's a Lyft driver on and we can compare the two. But I think most people, not Don doesn't, but most people who do one do both. Anyway. So yeah, Don is on the podcast. We talked about Uber, which is a very hot topic for me because I am not a fan of Uber or Lyft or cabs in general. And I see them exactly as cabs, but I see them as cabs with less restrictions and they're just more dangerous. Here in Boston, and there's been like 6 sexual assaults because of Uber drivers in the past year, maybe, or 2 years, something like that. It's absolutely ridiculous. There's no background checks done on it. It's they're dangerous. Like when I was a kid, I remember people saying, "Oh, you're going to become a cab driver, you're going to get robbed." Now it's like you become an Uber driver and you're like, "Oh, so who are you going to rape?" Like that's what that industry is to me, and that's why I'm not a fan of it. And it's provides the service. Yeah, I get it. But this also comes at an important time right now here in Boston because the state is putting a lot of regulations and restrictions on Uber and other Uber and Lyft, and if there's another company that does it, I think there is. I just saw this. I used to make a joke about this, and now somebody's actually doing it. There's going to be an Uber for boats, and I was like, "Oh, an Uber for boat system. What is that called? Canuber?" Anyway, I don't like puns, but I said it anyway. Right here in the state, they're putting a lot of restrictions on Uber and stuff like that. Like right now, I was looking at an article from Boston.com that a federal judge was asking, what's the difference between Uber and a taxi company? A federal judge isn't so sure of that, if there is one at all. U.S. District Court Judge Nathaniel Gordon on Thursday ordered the city of Boston to revise its taxi regulations within 6 months and to give the court a good reason why the city shouldn't be forced to regulate taxis and other ride-hailing services in the same way. So pretty much, that's always my argument, is what makes you different other than the way you operate. You're doing the same thing, and people who take it all the time argue, it's like, no, it's nothing like a cab company. Like, no, it's exactly like a cab. So just call yourself a cab company. I don't know. Also, I was never a big fan of Uber's shady business practices too. Like I've heard plenty of stories about how they would pay their drivers to order Lyft and then cancel it so that Lyft drivers can't get as much work or whatever. I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the whole industry, but it was interesting having him on to talk about his experiences. And we talked a lot about tipping because that is an important subject towards the Uber and system like that. And by the way, the article I just read from Boston.com, I'll have a link to that in the description of this podcast at deadairdennis.com/podcast. So let's get right into it. This is my podcast, me sitting down talking with Uber driver, real estate agent, Don Zollo. Enjoy.
I thought about this for an idea for a podcast. I'd like to call it 8 Beers Deep. And the idea of it is that you have to drink 8 beers to start the podcast.
Okay.
And I'm like, the only thing is, I don't think I consistently feel like drinking 8 beers and being scheduled to be somewhere. Like, it's one thing to just be drinking 8 beers and just do whatever it was going to happen. But I'm like, to schedule something, I'm like, I don't think I have the wherewithal to go do that.
Yeah, schedule it. Yeah, scheduling yourself to be somewhere and to drink and
have the other person and I'm like, it's just too much work.
No, sounds like a lot of work. But so, were you coming here from work? Were you just driving?
I was Ubering. Yeah, that's why I'm late because I made a rare Uber screw up and I basically tacked 15 minutes onto this guy's ride by accident. He was very understanding though. I took a wrong turn in Southie, and there is an insane amount of traffic. Ugh. And I screwed this guy by about 15 minutes. But I shut the meter off. I'm like, you shouldn't have to pay to get screwed over. But he was super nice, so I was happy.
Yeah, I've definitely sat in a cab once. I was running late to work back in Baltimore, running to a restaurant that I was working at right by the O's Oriole Park. So an O's game going on, so I should have known better about traffic. Waiting for buses. They weren't coming. And I realized because of traffic, so I started walking, hopped in a cab, and then the cab gets about 3 blocks down, and then just gridlock. And I sat there, and we didn't move. End up paying 30. He ran the meter up to $30. I'm like, I can't. No. I can't afford to sit in this cab right now. And I ran, and I lived a mile and a quarter away from the stadium, and I knew I should have just walked it, but I was being lazy.
I love this.
So it's good that you did that. That you turned it off.
Yeah, plus it was my screw up. You know what I mean? It's not like this. Yeah. So anyway, all right, I got to tell a quick cab story. I love this story. My buddy Nelly, I think it was when we were in college.
Oh, Nelly with the Band-Aid under the eye?
That Nelly, yeah. He was in a cab, and he was telling me, he goes, dude, he's like, I look at the meter. It's late at night. I'm coming back from the bar. He's like, I have like $16, and I'm just looking at this meter go up and up and up. And he goes, so he's like, I gave him an address that was like 2 blocks from my house. And he goes, because I knew it was going to be close to whether I'd have enough money or not. And he's like, he goes, we pull up to the neighborhood, and he's like, I look at the meter, and it's like $20. And he goes, he pulls up, and he goes, as soon as he stopped the car, he's like, I threw $16 in the front seat, and I bolted out of the car. And he's like, I ran through some guy's yard, and he goes, I'm like hiding in some bushes. And he goes, 3 minutes later, I see the cab, and he's like, a guy just gets out of the cab and yells, dude, if you had $16, I understand, man. And Nelly's hiding in the bushes. I'm like, he's like the cab driver was understanding, and here he is, like hiding in bushes from a cab driver
for $4 too, over $4. Like, I can't imagine anybody's like, if you're gonna get that upset over $4 for a cab ride home.
Well, there will be people that will. There will be people that will, but like, I just think it's funny. Like, the guy just got a dude. If all you had was $16, that's cool. I just think it's
because I don't even know how the cab industry works. Like, I know it's not an independent contractor thing, but it kind of is. Like, I don't understand how that world works. Like, financially, how those people, like, are they employed by a company, but they own their own car, but you have to get a license?
I think the cab company owns the car, and I would assume they're independent. But like, when you're a real estate agent, you can be a 1099 self-employed person that just happens to work for another person, or you can be an employee and you do the exact same job. So I'm sure it's probably set up the same way. However you want to do it, you can do it. Yeah. That's my guess.
So, but with Uber, you're not even an employee of Uber, right? You're a
1099. So
1090.
You're a self-employed person, and you just contract with them.
Okay. So, but what is the process of becoming an Uber driver? Because I've looked into it just briefly, just because, I'll be honest, I have a small hatred for Uber, Lyft, the whole thing, and this is where my hatred comes from. They refuse to call themselves a cab company.
Well, I mean, I don't know. It is they provide the same type of service, but let's agree, they provide a much better service than a cab.
No argument.
It's just like, if this technology existed years ago, cabs wouldn't have been a thing. It just would have been Ubers and Lyfts, you know. To become one, all you have to do is, I don't remember there being any criminal background check, but I could be wrong on that.
It's kind of my second. It depends on what state, and I've looked at it. That's my second problem with them, is there's no like good background checks. They definitely don't do fingerprints. Some states do background checks, criminal checks, but without a fingerprint, it doesn't matter.
Oh.
For the most part. But yeah, they do provide a good service, and they do it well. I think this is what drives me crazy, is we're an application maker. We're not a cab company. No, you're a cab company.
Oh, they're absolutely. That's a bullshit argument there. They are absolutely a transportation company. They're not just an app company. Yeah, that's bullshit. But yeah, you just have to apply, take a picture of your car, and send your registration, insurance, and I think that's it. You're ready to go.
But they're specific about the type of car, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't know what their qualification is. It's not crazy. It's not like you have to have a car from the past 2 years or something. It's like, I don't know, your car can be like 10 years old and you can still drive. But it's great if you're looking to make $200 or $300 a week. If you're looking to make your living, I figured out if I was going to just have my baseline life like paid for by Uber, I have to drive like 45 hours a week. Driving 45 hours a week in Boston will drive you out of your fucking mind. It's crazy. So I'm like, I don't like it when I'm in a situation where I have to lean on it. It's nice when it's just extra money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's not so bad. Now, what is the scheduling like with that? Can you just start and begin whenever you want?
Do whatever you want. That's why I like it. And originally, I got into it just because I was like, so many times I'll do a set and it's like 8 o'clock and you finish your set and it's 8:15. and I got another one to do at 10, and it's like I have an hour and 45 minutes, and I'm like, I'm not driving home, because by the time I drive home, it's basically time to drive back to wherever the second set is. So I was like, if I can go out and make $50 in 2 hours or thereabouts, I'm like, I'd much rather do that. So that's why I started doing it. And then I found that in the winter, when my real estate stuff slows down, I'm like, oh, well, I have another source of income. So I kind of lean on it a little bit in the winter.
Is it that like, you've only been doing it less than a year, right?
You Uber?
Yeah.
No, I've been doing it over a year, like maybe approaching a year and a half.
Okay, so about a year and a half. Is there any difference between a year and a half and now with the amount of work you get or the amount of cars out there you see? Because I feel like so many more people are picking it up. It's saturating the market of drivers.
I don't think so. I think that there's more people using it too. Yeah. So there are more drivers, but there's also more like riders or users. Right now, it's wicked slow. And I remember this last year. There's half the population of Boston is college students. So it's like when winter break comes, half the people in Boston almost go to another area. And then as a result, you still have the same amount of drivers, but there's, half
less
as many
customers.
users. So like there's a lot less demand right now. And, I realized that last year. So it is slower right now, but I think that's more like because the college kids are away.
And you think it'll pick up once the classes start again in
like another week. They come back at the end of January, so it's like another week, something like that.
So most of the business is college students then?
No, I wouldn't say most of it, but it's a significant portion of it. I mean, it's a significant portion, but it's like when half of your customers leave, Yeah. So I wouldn't say they're most, but it's a
large portion.
Piece, yeah.
Well, that's weird to me that it would be college students, because if I know when I was in college, I wasn't taking cabs or anything like that.
The world is a different place too. Like I don't know how to say it. Like if Uber existed in the 80s, I bet you, it would almost be the equivalent. Let me put it this way. I don't think a lot of kids would take cabs to class, but they'll take Ubers. You know what I mean? There's just a little bit of a difference there.
So college students, instead of taking the whatever BU bus or Harvard bus or whatever, or even walking to campus, they'll take an Uber.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of them will walk, and a lot of them will take the train or take the bus or whatever, but a lot of them do Uber. I'm blown away, because I'm like, even if it's a cheap ride, well, you just paid $6 to go to class, and you're going to pay $6 to go back. I'm like, that's $12. And you do that like every day. Like, I mean, I think back to when I was in college, and I'm like, if I was to have $12 of transportation cost every day, I don't know how I'd swing it. You know what I mean? Like,
absolutely.
I'm like, it's not like you're working, or if you are working, you're not working that many hours. I'm like, I don't know. But so there's another whole thing is I'm like, I can't stand how bad the banks have college students, over the barrel, so to speak. Kids get out of school now and they get like $200,000 worth of debt. It makes me sick.
Do me one favor. If you can just move a little bit closer on that, it would be fine. Basically just talking that that round, large black thing.
I feel like I'm LL Cool J.
Yeah. Actually, I was just watching Straight Outta Compton, and I think they had, and I wanted to rewind it to see if they caught him. Very good movie. They really lean heavy on making Dre and Cube look like the heroes of it, which is not wrong, but they I even read an interview with his ex-fiance, Vlada, or whatever her name is. Dre's ex-fiance, the one that he allegedly beat.
I call him Dre because we're so informal and casual.
Well, why sound white and say Andre? But they left her out of it. They put Nicole Young in, who was his other wife. So I'm actually impressed. There's two things they added to it that I was expecting not to see. One of them was that they mentioned his career as a doing R&B records, DJing R&B and producing R&B songs.
Yeah, at the beginning.
Because like the same year that they released Boys in the Hood, he released a huge, super sexy and cheesy R&B dance song.
Really? I didn't know that.
Same exact year, like 85, he released the same record, like in red crushed velvet tuxedo and whatnot. And they also they had Lil Ren and MC Yeller in it as well. Like the way you look at the promos, it feels like they completely left those two guys out, but at least they're heavily featured in the movie. So
Yeah, which it's like everyone always remembers the big three of that group, but I'm like, there were two other dudes in that group. You know what I mean? It's kind of like being not Bono. It's kind of like being
Adam
Ringo.
Clayton.
Ringo.
Oh, Ringo.
Yeah, like you're in one of the most successful groups of all time, but you don't get the respect you deserve.
Well, I think the fun, and I love saying this whenever somebody talks about Ringo and the Beatles. I think my favorite quote about Ringo is ever when they were interviewing, I guess, all the band, or at least it was John Lennon who said this. They asked him, was like, so what's it like being in a band with Ringo, who's the greatest drummer in the world? And he goes, greatest drummer in the world.
He's not the greatest
drummer in the
band.
Beatles.
Yeah, I heard that line, yeah.
Which is, like, I love that line so much. I wish I ever had a chance in my entire life to be able to use something like that.
Yeah, the first time I learned about the Ringo disrespect was a Saturday Night Live skit in the 80s. They were the idea of the skit was this promoter was coming out and he was holding up a check and he's like, I have a check for the Beatles. If you guys want to reunite for performance, he's like, for $3,000. And he's like, it's yours to split up however you want. He's like, if you want to give Ringo less, that's your business. And I was like, I remember I was like 7 or 8 and I was like, why are they not liking this guy? And then like I go on to kind of learn, I'm like, yeah, he just never got the respect he deserved, for being in the greatest band like that's ever existed.
Yeah. And that Lorne Michael thing, I think Paul McCartney actually saw that. I saw an interview. I remember listening to an interview where Paul McCartney had talked about seeing that episode of SNL, and I think he was actually with John Lennon, or he called John Lennon about it. It was like we are right down the street. Do you really want to go do this? And like, maybe.
Like they were talking about like going down to accept the check.
Yeah.
That would have been hilarious.
Oh, that would have been great. The premise of them even hearing about it and thinking about it is amazing.
Yeah, like that's unbelievable. Imagine doing like how big that would have been if they showed up and actually took the check. Like, or even just showed up and turned it down. You know what I mean? Just anything.
Oh, that's just, it blows our mind. But I think, and I'm trying to remember what interview it was. It might have been Nerdist, could have been something else. But when I were talking to Paul McCartney about it, Paul was like he has no concept of how big his band is. Like, he has no concept of how the rest of the world sees them. Like, they know, yeah, we're really super popular, but I don't think they understood how big that would have been.
Right. Like, that would have, like, I won't say made his career, especially because he's Lorne Michaels, but I mean, it would have been like the highlight of so many people's career. Like the biggest thing, you know what I mean? And like, to them, it's like, I don't know. I
mean, even when they played on that surprise rooftop performance,
vaguely
was still humongous. Well, they got basically their last performance together as a group, I think, was
on a rooftop. Oh, I didn't know that.
Just in the streets. Yeah, no, you've definitely seen. You've seen the footage of them on the rooftop, and the Simpsons spoofed it. They basically weren't together for a little while, and then they just got. I could be getting wrong on the story of that, but they get it, and they just did a surprise rooftop performance in like New York City or somewhere, maybe San Francisco. I don't remember where. I should probably have known I should have thought of the details a little bit more before I started saying.
Before we got into it.
But on the subject of music, do you play? Is there a certain like Uber playlist you have for customers, or do you switch it up? Because I've had cab drivers guess what kind of music they think I like getting in. Like, they'll put on country. I'm like, bro, wrong dude. I get it. White, hate country.
Yeah, I like to do this, and I always think this is funny. I started doing this thing. I don't really do it that much anymore, but I try to size up the customer. And like for instance, I always remember this one ride where I'm like this group of young girls. When I say young, they were like, they were in college, like probably about 20 or so. And I was like, I'm going to throw on, and they had been drinking. I was like, I'm going to throw on some music that I think is going to make them go fucking crazy. And I threw on like Flo Rida and like, I don't know, Enrique Iglesias, and like, they just to watch them jam out, it was just absolutely hilarious. Like, they all 5 of them or all 4 of them, whatever was in the car, they're all singing every single word with every fiber of their being, and I'm like, this is hilarious. And I was telling I mentioned it once in conversation to Owen Bonus. I don't know if you know who he is. He's a comedian, started in Boston, he's in New York now. And I was like, yeah, I try to size up the customer, match him to some music that I played on the iPod. And he's like, that's the most racist thing I've ever heard, John. I was like, all right, you kind of nailed it, but I'm like, nonetheless, I still enjoy doing it.
Yeah, well, I it's not so insulting when us white people get in the car and you play white people music, but it's probably more insulting when you're picking up a black customer like, oh, here.
I bet you he'll enjoy some Nas. Yeah, like I always think this is funny. I'm like, I love sports radio, and I listen to sports radio in the car a lot, and there'll be a bunch of foreigners that I'll be driving, and I can tell that they have no clue, what any of this conversation about Belichick or, should they drop into a 3-4 and, or a 4-3 or what are they going to do? And I can just tell they have no idea. And it's just noise to them. And then I think about it. I'm like, the times that I've taken a cab and there'll be some dude that's driving and there'll be like Indian music on I can't even begin to wrap my head around enjoying this type of music. And it's bothersome to me. And then I'm like, oh, now I'm that guy. Now I'm that guy listening to my shit that they can't stand. And I'm like, I love it, but they can't stand it and they have to sit here and listen to it. And I'm like, oh, all right. Well, sometimes I'm the asshole. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but it's also a matter, there's a language barrier difference sometimes. Like, they may be playing really good, sitar songs, but you don't understand what they're saying, so it doesn't mean anything to you the same way sports is.
I just don't enjoy the sound of that type of music, but I'm like, it's the exact same premise, though. They don't enjoy what I'm listening to, and I'm still like, I'm not doing it to be a jerk, but I'm like, I'm the one that's going to be in the car for hours. You're going to be in the car for 10 minutes, and I'm like, tough shit, you're going to listen to it.
And the same way around, I was like, you know what? I'm in the car, I'll suffer through it.
Yeah. That's exactly my tone. I'm in the guy's car, so we play by his rules,
Now, don't they have a feature to where you could play your own playlist when you get in the car, when you order a car?
Yeah, I tell them that I don't have an aux cable, an auxiliary cable.
Okay.
Because you need to have that in order to play it. And I'm like, I feel like I'm rolling the dice on what music we're going to be listening to. And I'm like, if it's something that I don't like, well, fuck that. I don't want to deal with it. And I've done it before, and I'm like, it's amazing. If it's a song that you truly just don't like, I'm like, and I have to sit there and listen to it, I'm like, it puts me in a shitty mood. You know what I mean? I'm like, so I'm just like, no, don't have an auxiliary cable, which is bullshit.
Well, I feel like, when Uber X is what you drive, right?
Yeah.
And then there's Uber Black, which is the town car service, correct?
From what I understand, it literally just has to be a black car, which is the dumbest thing ever.
Really?
It's like, oh, well, we're being driven in a black Camry instead of a white one. Who gives a shit? You know what I mean?
Because of the first system that came to DC, and this is when I heard about it, was the town car service, and a couple of my friends I worked with in radio were using them to get to and from their gigs, and they were talking about how what the driver is, they give the driver a device at that time. It was still when, so it was like 2008, 2009, maybe.
That was an Uber?
I'm trying to get, it might be like 10.
But it was 11. When you were living there.
Yeah. I've been here 3 years, so.
So that puts us to 2012 and, no, 2013.
2013. So it was definitely, it might have been like 2010, 2011, right. Now I think about it. I'm terrible with dates.
I didn't even know about Uber until 2013. I had the coolest Uber. I don't know if I'll ever get an Uber ride that was as cool as this one. Long story, which is actually pretty awesome, but it's just, I think it's way too long for me to get into. But I ended up with a free ticket to Game 6 of the Stanley Cup, and I go over to my buddy's house, and he's like, I'm like, so how are we getting in? You want to order a cab? And he's like, I got it taken care of. And he ordered an Uber, and I'd never seen it before, and I was like, what the fuck is this? And all of a sudden, a town car shows up, and a buddy of ours, who was a state cop, was going to be going into the game also, but he was driving his cruiser into the game. And he's like, he had to be there in like 15 minutes. And we were about 15 minutes away with no traffic. And as the town car's getting up, the state trooper's getting his car. He's like, I got to get there now. And he goes, hey, he's like, I'm going in. And he's like, just let me escort you in. And he threw the lights on to drive in. It was bumper to bumper traffic, and we sat in a town car and had a police escort into the Stanley Cup Finals. I was like, how fucking cool is this? I'm driving in this fancy car with a driver that just came to pick me up, and then we're skipping all the traffic. I'm like, I felt like I was the president. It was so cool.
Oh my God. I can't imagine ever. No, I can't imagine ever having anything similar to that where you have a police escort to go to a sports game.
To go to a sports game.
In a private car.
It was fucking great. I loved it. It felt so cool.
Oh my God. Well, the thing with it was, with them, what I thought you had to have a chauffeur's license, because the way my friends were telling me it was, sometimes they would get picked up in limos, because a limo driver, especially during prom season, would be out doing something. They'd drop the kids off at prom, and they'd have 3 hours before they have to pick them back up.
Right.
And they would do that. And when I heard about it then, I was like, oh, that's great. And then when I started hearing it, was like, oh, no, dude, anybody can drive. I was like, oh, that sounds so sketchy.
It would be cool if you just went to go get your cheap Uber ride and a limo shows up because he had nothing to do.
Exactly. Yeah.
You know?
But yeah, that's what I thought the difference was, is you had to have a chauffeur's license to do the town car. But I
got
guess
a
that's
good
wrong.
Uber story that I actually tell on stage about the license. So I got pulled over by a Bunker Hill Community College cop, and I wasn't sure I was getting pulled over, and like I pulled over kind of slow, and the dude came up, and he had like a ton of attitude right off the bat. Like I was being nice to this guy.
In this story, who were you picking up?
I was just picking up some girl that I think went to Bunker Hill Community College, and he said I ran this stop sign. I sat waiting for the girl at the stop sign for like 3 minutes. She got into the car, and I just proceeded forward. I had been stopped for 3 minutes, but like, you know, did I pull up and stop? No, I had just been stopped, and then I decided to go. And he said I ran the stop sign. So he pulls me over, and he's like, why's the broad in the back? And I was like, oh, I'm driving Uber. And he goes, oh. He's like, you're driving Uber? He's like, I don't see a livery plate on your car. And I'm like, well, yeah, you know, I'm driving Uber. And I'm like, you know, you don't need one. And he goes, I'm going to tell you right now, to me, you are a livery. Okay? To me, you are a livery. And I was like, sir, you got to understand, to me, you're a pretend cop. I didn't say the pretend cop thing, but that's what I want. But the rest of it was, and he started busting my balls about not having a livery license. And like, I was like, you don't need one. And he's like, yes, you do. And I'm like, why would I need, if I needed one, wouldn't they just make me get one in order to drive Uber? And he's like, listen, I don't care what they make you do or not make you do. He's like, to me, you're a livery and you don't have a livery plate on your car. And I was like, I don't know what to tell you. I'm sorry. That's all I can say. And he's like, he gave me a warning. And then I reached out to Uber about it.
Warning.
He gave me a piece of paper that says I was warned. But anyways, I sent an email to Uber, and I was like, look, I had this cop busting my balls, and he told me I need a livery plate, and he seemed very adamant about it. And this was kind of their response. I'm paraphrasing it, but he's like, yeah, that's a gray area. He might be right. And I was like, what? Like, yeah, no, yeah, he's got a point. And I was like, oh, like, and then basically their response was, well, if you get a ticket for it, just let us know. We'll pay for it.
Oh, at least they'll do that.
And I was like, oh, well, at least you'll do that. But I'm like, it shocked me that, like, oh no, they were right. So,
see, again, that just fuels my opinion on the company's so sketchy when they're like, he might be right, but we're not concerned.
Well, yeah, just keep breaking the law. It's cool. But I do have to say this, like, I get why cab drivers are pissed about it. I'm like, those medallions that you have to have, they cost a lot of money. I mean, I don't know how much it is, but it's not like $10,000. It's like, it costs like $200,000 or more to get one of those things. And then this new organization comes in and like, oh yeah, no, we're just not going to do that. No, but you have to. Yeah, no, we're not going to do it. Like, that's just, I get why they're angry. Like, they have a legitimate gripe. That being said, I'm like, the way technology's set up, I don't think you need those things anymore. So,
yeah. Oh no, the cab industry is shady and dirty as well as it is. So I can't fault them, but you're right. They have a full right of being mad about the whole thing, in my opinion, as well.
Yeah, they totally do. But whatever. It's the Uber provides a better service, so it is what it is.
They provide the same service.
They do provide a better service. And I'll tell you why. Because this isn't scientific. It's not. But my rough estimate is, even if the price surges in Uber, it has to surge to 2.5 times the normal price before it equals the price of a cab ride. So right off the bat, it's 60% cheaper. That's a better service. The other thing is, you hit a button and the thing knows where you are. You don't have to call a cab company. Like, I don't know your experience with calling cab companies, but it's very rare that I'm ever treated pleasant when I call a cab company. And a lot of times you're calling for like 10 minutes before you get through to actually talk to a human. This, you hit a button, it's done. There's no money exchange, it's done. If you need to substantiate a receipt, it's done. You know, it's like, I just think it's so great in that respect. You know what I mean? You can hit a button and it splits the fare. That's cool. You know what I mean?
I'll admit it's a more convenient service.
Well, that's better.
Yeah, it's I guess you're right.
Knowing when the person's going to come, gigantic cool thing about it. You know what I mean? Rather than, all right, this cab will show up in 5 minutes or in 15. I don't know. Like, you're like, oh, no, here's this person. They're 4 minutes. I better get ready. You know, like I think it's just a better service.
Now, do you worry, though, that because I think almost every time I've either gotten one or my friends have gotten one, I've ordered one once with a promo code because I was stuck outside. I was stuck in Faneuil Hall after the trains had ended. I missed the last train. I was like, I really don't have enough money to afford a cab from Faneuil Hall to Brighton.
That's a big.
I was like, oh, dude, I'll do it one time with a promo code. It'll cost me nothing. So I did it. But I've been in the cars with my other friends that do it, and I've walked my friends out when they call one. I still walk them out, and I was like, "What's the driver's name? Hey, what's your name?" Like I always ask them. I don't like, "Hey, are you Don?" No, I make sure they say their name because it's so sketch to me. Every time something happens, my eyes immediately go to that story.
I get that, but here's the thing: they give you the license plate. If you just go and look at the license plate, you can't mistake it. Like, I mean, it's like there could be two green, Chevy Impalas, you know what I mean, at the same location, but there's not going to be two that have the same license plate.
The only word I understood of what you said was green. So I have no idea what cars look like. Most cars to me are shiny. That's how I distinguish them. So they call. When they arrive, they'll call somebody like, "Hey, I'm your Uber driver. I'm here."
Sometimes.
Do you worry about? Yeah, sometimes they do. Often, whatever, it depends. I guess like if you don't
I
know
only
the
do it
person,
when it's a confusing situation to pick somebody up. Like if there's like a ton of people in an area, I'm like, "Hey, I'm parked in front of this thing. Come look for me," or whatever.
Do you worry about giving your phone number out to people when you have to call them like that?
It's a third party phone number. Like, so it's a hidden. Like they get a phone. They see a phone number, but it's not my real number.
Okay.
And it's vice versa for the customer too. And it changes every single customer. The phone number stays the same, but it's only good for that ride. So if you want to get in touch with somebody from 3 rides ago, you're not going to do it off of the Uber phone number.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
So when you call through the app, right?
Yeah.
You don't actually dial the phone number yourself. You just dial
you can. You can dial through the app. You just hit a button and it goes through, but it'll also be in your call log. So if you have your call log open, you can just hit. I have it saved in my phone as Uber customer. Okay. So I just boom, and it goes into Uber customer.
When you call Uber customer, is it always the same phone number when you're calling that customer? So every customer you've ever picked up always has the same number, and it dials back to the last person.
Right.
Oh, okay.
That's a much better way to say it than the way I was trying to say it. Yes. You summed that up a lot faster.
What if somebody leaves something in the cab? Like if a woman leaves a purse, how do they get in touch with you then?
They can contact Uber, and then Uber will know that I drove them, and then they can reach out. I'm trying to think. Some girl left her cell phone, and
she couldn't call you?
Yeah, she couldn't. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
Did you try calling her? Oh, wait.
Uber contacted me and said some girl left her phone, and she left her contact info. Can you get in touch with her? And I did, and she was nice. She gave me a $40 tip for returning it to her.
Oh, wow.
Which is nice of her. I mean, it still took up a lot of my time to drive to her, but I mean, what did it take, a half hour, and I got $40 for doing it? Great.
Oh, yeah.
But at the same time, I think she understood, like, here's a $600 phone. $40 isn't the end of the world. So
she give you a $40 tip in cash? Okay.
Cash.
Because that's how I don't understand. The other thing about it that I don't get is, aren't you supposed to tip through the app?
They don't have a tip feature anymore. From what I understand.
Oh, anymore. Okay.
Before I drove Uber, I heard that there was a tip feature, and it's not there anymore. I think that's bullshit. I'm like, you're providing someone a service. If they want to tip you, they should be allowed to do it.
Yeah.
Not to mention, I like to think of myself as a pretty nice guy. That being said, I'm like, you know what? I'd probably treat you even nicer if there was a possibility of a tip. I do or provide even better service. And maybe that sounds a little bit like a jerk, like I'm not going to bring it 100%. But you know what? Sometimes you get tired. After 10, 15 rides, you're like, it's easy to fall into, I'll just drive this person, rather than I'll drive this person and be the most charming person ever and, help them out with as much information as I could. Well, you know what? If there was a tip on the line, I'd probably provide even better service.
Yeah.
And I think it's kind of bullshit that they don't allow for that. Every now and then someone will throw you a little bit of cash, and it's nice. And you know what? I appreciate the cash in terms of the actual dollars coming, but I appreciate it from the standpoint of, oh, here's somebody that's grateful for this ride that I've just given them. And I appreciate it more because of that. This was the coolest one I ever had. I gave this guy a ride, and I was in a pissy mood. And I gave him a ride. I didn't treat him like a jerk or anything in the least, but I just wasn't in a great mood. And it was a very short ride. I drove him to the bank, and as he's getting out, he goes, "Hey, man," and he hands me $20. And I was like, "Dude, are you serious? This is like a $4 ride." And he's like, "Don't worry about it, man." He's like, "Thank you for taking me. I really appreciate it." And I didn't treat the guy like a jerk in the least, but I was like, it just changed my attitude instantaneously. I'm like, here's a guy giving me $20 tip on like a $4 ride or whatever it was. And I was like, "Thank you so much. I truly appreciate that." I'm like, he's like, "Hey, Merry Christmas, man." And he goes,
That's it. The Christmas. I was going to ask about that.
yeah. So I was like, and you know, he goes, he's like, "I'm going to be getting another Uber in a couple minutes if you're still around." I go, "What do you mean a couple minutes?" Because I'm just going into the bank. And I was like, "So you're just going into the bank?" I'm like, "I'll wait for you." So he went into the bank. He came back out, and I mentioned to him on the ride back, which was still just the $4 ride back. I said, "Hey, this one's on me. I'm not even turning on the meter. Thank you so much for that tip. That was so nice of you." And he's like, "Oh, don't worry about it." And as he was getting out, he gave me $30.
Oh.
And I was like, I got $50 of tips for about $7 worth of a ride.
Yeah.
I was like, and it's just, I'm like, you know what? I'm talking about it on a podcast. I'll probably remember that for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
You know
and
what I
that's
mean?
part of why it was, because the Christmas time, people are very generous when it comes to service people who gets tips around Christmas.
Yeah, I agree.
I had customers out of town come to I was in Baltimore working at a restaurant downtown. They were staying at I was working at a restaurant in a hotel. They were staying at a different hotel. They came over, had lunch. I was as pleasant as I normally am to everybody, which is, I will admit, when I'm waiting tables and bartending, sickeningly over the sweet.
Oh, really?
Height. Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, like, you get bitchy after a while. Oh, okay.
I get bitchy, but not to the customers.
All right.
Oh, in the back of the room, I'm in the kitchen, in the back of the house, I am a monster to deal with. Front of the house, they'll never know that. Unless they can hear me yelling F-bombs in the kitchen, which has happened. But I'm surprised customers don't leave having diabetes, how sweet I am to them. But so was my normal level of sweetness. It wasn't necessarily over the top, because sometimes I'll be over the top, but even my normal level's kind of too much. And they had lunch, nothing particular. It was a slow day. They left a $100 tip on their meal, which was $30 or $40 maybe. I think they gave me like $120 on a $30 or $40 tip, and I'm like,
and you're like, what? You couldn't make it an even 100?
I was like, guys, that was really not. No, I would expect that from regular customers. Two people out of town, like, it's Christmas time. Take it. Have a good time. You were super nice. Have a great time. We're on vacation. Enjoy yourself.
I'd love to be able to have money to do those things.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I always remember this. Like, I was at Dunkin' Donuts once a couple years ago, or last year, a couple years ago, whatever. And I went to go pay for my order in the store. And the person that was charging me for it, she goes, "Oh, no, it's all set." I go, "What do you mean it's all set?" And she pointed as this car was driving away. She goes, "That guy at the drive-thru just paid for everybody's stuff in Dunkin' Donuts." And I was like, everybody's? Like, I've been on the receiving end of the person in front of me paid for my order at the drive-thru or something like that. But I was like, he paid for everybody's? I'm like, how cool is that? I'm like, I still remember it, you know?
Yeah, it's when you do something nice for somebody, it's amazing how far that goes. Like, my father used to tell me, and I did it for a little while, and I just stopped doing it because it was getting too much, because I took the tunnel every day.
To pay for the person. Yeah.
It was because when I started driving, it was $1 for the tunnel, Fort McHenry tunnel. So you just give them $2, no big deal. And then they doubled it to $2. So $2 becomes $4.
$4, you start to be like, $4 is almost $5 is how you think of it. And it's like, it's costing me $5 to go to work. Like, I get that.
Twice a day,
right.
To and from, and college student, and I was going to college, so I stopped doing it. Occasionally I'll still do it. If I'm in a car and driving, I'll just do it. If I don't have ones, if all I have is a $5, I'm like, here, just pay for the person behind me. Or what I used to do, this is my favorite thing, is when cell phones just started. We'd be me and my friends would be going somewhere. We'd have a nice little caravan, one or two other cars, and I'll call them up real quick on the phone and be like, "Hey, just because we're late, I'm gonna pay your fare at the toll. Just go right through." And then I won't do it. And then they get their ticket in the mail. It's like, dude, what happened? Like, oh yeah, I totally didn't do that.
Did you really do that? You're an asshole. That's like
to my friends.
Oh God.
whatever it is. And, only one of my friends has come back to say, he's like, I got this thing in the mail. What happens? Like, here's the $10. I'll pay it. But just to have them so mad.
Oh, yeah.
Or we'll do it in the car. Like, most of the time the laugh is at the car. It's like, oh, I totally didn't pay for their thing.
That's great.
It's a terrible prank to do to your friends, but I enjoy it. But so since we're talking about tips, is this your first job that you ever had where you're earning tips?
Where I'm earning tips? Trying to think. Yeah, probably. I mean, I've waited tables, but briefly. Like, I don't even really consider it like. I worked at, I don't know if you know Kelly's Roast Beef.
No, of them, yeah.
Okay,
It's a whole chain of them, yeah.
Yeah. I worked at the one in Revere for about 10 years, and
isn't that the original one?
It is, and it's like I'd work the morning shifts, so like I'd come in and open the place, and people would leave tips on coffee money. Which I loved working the shift because if you worked it, you basically got like an extra $30.
Really?
Like, which, I mean, back then it was like, in the 90s to get an extra $30, like when I was in college. I'm like, you mean if I get up at like 4 hours earlier and come to work, I'll get an extra $30 for the same amount of time? I was like, yeah, put me down. Like, it was a no-brainer. So that's the only time I ever worked for tips, and that was coffee money tips. So
yeah, that's here's the extra change.
Right, it wasn't.
It's a little bit different than.
Then you're right. I agree. Then like, oh, what else can I get for your dinner, sir? Like, yeah, it's totally different.
Yeah, and those. Have you noticed a difference? Like, well, I guess you're not getting tips with Uber, so, has that affected you? Like, other than the guy giving you a tip for Christmas, does that change your opinion about tipping or anything?
No, because I always think that you should tip people that are providing you a service, and
Okay.
I generally do it. Ironically, last night I took an Uber, which I hardly ever do, but last night I was in town and I knew I was going to be drinking, so I got a ride in and then Ubered back. And when I was getting out of the car, I didn't tip him, and I felt bad about it, but all I had was a 20. I guess in hindsight, maybe I could have asked him if he had change, but I was like, all I had was a 20, and I was like, oh, tough shit. Like, I mean, I hated doing it, and maybe I'm a hypocrite, but I was like, all I had was a 20, and until I was just talking about it, it didn't even occur to me to ask if he had change on him. I would have thrown him like $3-4 anyways,
Yeah. I think, all right, my rules on tipping, Deadair Dennis's rules on tipping is this. If you're at a restaurant.
Let me get my pen.
If you're at a restaurant or a bar, you should always, for regular service,
20%.
Or at least 15 to 20.
I will
20 is
tip
just an easy
15.
number.
I will tip 15, or I should say I'll tip under 20, but usually no less than 15 if I feel I've gotten really shitty service.
Yeah.
And shitty service, and it wasn't extenuating circumstances. They just didn't care.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And then what my is, and this is what I usually do at a restaurant. Bars are a little bit different, but around the same. Is if I'm at a restaurant, it's 20% automatically, and then I throw in $1 per person.
Oh.
And the reason it is because that $1 means a lot more to them than it means to you. And granted, I worked in the service industry, so my opinion is completely flawed and skewed on everything. If you think about giving
if everybody did it, I mean, yeah, geez, at the end of the day, that person, they probably walk out an extra $50 a night or so.
On a slow night, yeah.
And you multiply that 5 nights a week, let's say 4. That's $200 a week, 50 weeks that they work roughly. That's an extra $10,000.
Yeah.
Of cash. That makes a huge difference in a person's life.
Yeah, and I tell people, and my friends always ask me, what should we tip on this? I'm like, don't ask me because you're not going to like what I say. But I tell people, like, tip whatever you're going to tip in general, but throw in an extra $1. Because again, it means that, and plus, most of the time, that $1 changes that percentage. So even if you tip 15% on a check, throw in $1 that, let's say it's $100 check. If you give them $15, throw in another $1, so that's 16%. So if we reverse that, if we go, it's a $50 bill, you tip 15%, which would be $7.50. Throw in $1, $8.50. You now actually tipped 18%.
Yeah.
You know, when you're doing the mathematics of everything, it just bumps that. And working in the industry, when you're always looking at your sales to how much you made in tips, you're always kind of doing that math of what your percentage to sales is, and just those couple extra dollars changes everything so much. And you go from having an 18% day to a 20% day, and your entire mood changes.
It does.
For me at least.
What the hell? I like to write a note sometimes if I got great service.
Oh, that's nice.
I'm like, food was, good, the service was outstanding or whatever. And just, I'm like, because I think if somebody wrote a note to me, I'm like, wow, that's so cool.
I take the time, yeah.
I gave a speech this past year, and when I say a speech, it wasn't stand-up. It was like, please come and give a speech to our organization, which I find to be hilarious that this ended up in my lap, the most immature dickhead around. But they wanted somebody to come in and talk about Boston and New York sports, and
which you know a lot about.
Right. So I came in and I gave the speech, and which I got paid I'll say very well, but I'm using the finger quotes, very well to me, and very well in comparison to what you get for a stand-up gig.
Yeah.
But from what I understand, it's the amount of money that I received was almost nothing in the realm of what public speakers get.
Yeah, they're ridiculously overpaid.
Like I basically got about $1,000 to come in and it was just shy of $1,000 to come in and talk. And one of the things that I was going to do.
I haven't even made $1,000 in comedy in 6 years combined. So no, that's great.
Yeah. So so I've, you know what, as I'm talking about this, I've promised myself last year I was going to get more into public speaking. And I'm like, you know what, I'm like, Jesus Christ, I got paid like $1,000 to give that speech. And it was nerve wracking because it was the first time I ever gave a speech. And she actually said, she's like, we don't mind if there's some funniness in it, but your goal isn't to go up there and be humor driven. It's like to, entertain them outside the realm, like about sports. And I was like, okay. But one of the things I was going to do in it was my buddy Pat gave me this idea. He goes, I'm not going to get into it, but he's like, go buy a small trophy, like the tiniest trophy you can find. And I found a package of small trophies in like a dollar store, and they're about maybe 1.5 inches tall, and it looks like a championship cup. And at the end of the speech, I raised this little tiny championship cup in victory to the crowd, and it called back to something that I'd spoken about earlier. So it was a pretty funny way to end the speech. Well, I had 10 of these, and me and my buddy Pat went out for breakfast afterwards, and I paid for breakfast, and I got the tip, and I left the person a trophy, and I was like, the service was championship level. And the chick really got a kick out of it. And I have like a whole bunch of these things, and I'm like, I think that's what I'm just going to start doing now. I thought about it. I was like, why not just take these with me in the car? Whenever somebody provides you with like a nicer, be like, this was championship level today. And I remember that probably for the rest of my life if somebody tipped me a tiny trophy.
No, that is kind of a big deal. The littlest things mean so much.
They can.
And they seem so cheesy and dumb when you think about doing it. Like, I'm pretty sure when your friend pitched you the thing, you're like, ugh.
I kind of was, but I was like, I can see how it would be funny too. Like, I was like, and also considering what a great public speaker he is, I'm like, who am I to decide if this advice is good or bad? I'm like, he knows what he's doing. I don't. But geez, as I'm talking about this, I got to get more into these speeches. Like I'm like, and once you've given the speech a few times, then it becomes easy. You know what I mean? It's like, yeah.
Well, it's the same thing as a routine. You just memorize it.
But you know what's strange about giving that speech was, it was so weird to be on stage, and it should be so much easier to just give a speech and be like, oh, there's no pressure on you to be funny. But at the same time, while I was up there, I was like, they haven't laughed in like 2 minutes. Oh my God. And it's like, well, they're not supposed to laugh. I'm supposed to give a presentation on this topic. And she specifically said, we're not going totally for funny here. But yet in my head, I was like, it's been 2 minutes. Oh my God, I haven't gotten a laugh. I'm bombing up here. And it's like, no, you're not. You're doing what you're supposed to do. And it was like, but to me, it was bombing. You know what I mean? But it was like, and when I got done, the woman who was in charge of hiring us was like, oh my God, that was outstanding. I loved it. Oh, that was great. And I was like, really? She's like, yeah. And I'm like, I'm thinking I'm bombing, but I'm like, no, it's just when you're so conditioned to get laughs every fucking 20 seconds or whatever, when you don't get a laugh for 2 minutes, you're like, geez, I'm not going to be invited back, you know?
Yeah, it's that instant gratification, that instant.
Right. I'm doing well or I'm not doing well. Now I have to change it. You know what I mean? It's like,
instant feedback.
Right, instant feedback. That's the way to say it.
Yeah, that comedians that we survive off of. But I've been trying to do this recently for at least the past almost a year now, is try to get comfortable within the silence. So when I'm doing my set, if there's a lull or I want to take a pause to even think about the next thing or do whatever, I have to learn to be comfortable within that instead of just the continual rambling, which works, but sometimes you have to just learn.
It's huge.
To be quiet.
And it's like also, I think that you got to be okay with not getting laughs. And I don't mean bombing. I mean, to me, stand-up comedy
is about laughs, but it's also it can be about being interesting. Like there are certain times, like a comedian will be on stage and I'll be listening to it and it's really funny and then it'll hit a lull of no laughs. But if it's interesting, if you're just like, oh my God, so then what happens? Tell me the next thing that's going to happen in this story. And it might not be a funny thing, but if you're on the edge of your seat, that's entertainment. And that at the end of the day, that's what stand-up comedy is. So it's like every now and then I'll have to tell myself when I'm on stage, I'm like, it's okay to just be interesting. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't have to be laughs the whole time, but it's like, yeah, you get uncomfortable when you don't get laughs up there for like, oh my God, I haven't gotten a laugh in a minute. Like, and it's like, no, sometimes that's okay. But you got to know that.
Yeah, I try to go in the mindset that, especially with open mics, because I do a lot more open mics than you do, because, you know, you have shows that you're booked on and I don't. But
and it's such a double-edged sword because those shows are better to do because they're more fun and stuff like that. But it's like, dude, if you get out of the repetition of doing open mics and then you go to do one, like there'll be times when I won't go to like just a regular open mic for like, you know, I don't know, 2-3 weeks out because I'll be just doing the shows that I have booked. And I'm like, I go and I do one of those hard open mics and I'm like, oh my God, this is fucking terrible. And it's like, no, you got to keep those muscles going so that it's not terrible.
Yeah. So if I'm going in there working on new stuff, at least, especially new stuff, I will make sure it's at least interesting before, if I know it's not going to be 100% funny, if it's still working, at least I know it's going to be interesting enough until I can build the jokes and build the laughs off of that. Hopefully. I try to, if I can't be funny, I'll at least be interesting and I'm comfortable. I was comfortable with that.
Right, yeah, comfortable, finger quotes. Yeah. I was just about to tell you about something. I'm like, oh, no, wait, you asked me to be on this podcast that day. That last show that we did was in Somerville. Yeah. Jesus Christ, was that brutal. I was like, oh, my God. Like that drunk guy, like, and you know, if you're in comedy, you know that there's going to be drunk people. But a lot of times drunk people are fun. A lot of times drunk people are just neutral. They'll sit there and quietly watch. This guy was a pain in the ass.
Yeah, well, that's wet brain for you.
Yeah, like that, and that's exactly what it was. And it's just like, and you know what? You look at that guy, and it's like, that's sad. Like, and when I say that, I'm not taking a shot at him. It's like, I feel bad. Like, that was one of those shows where I was like, oh yeah, you know, like, I haven't been doing that many open mics recently, and then to be thrown into that environment. When I got off stage, I was like, Jesus Christ, that was rough.
And I knew going into the show that we were doing that it was going to be a shit show. Because they were trying to do an open mic at that place on a Saturday afternoon before. They did it on a Wednesday night, like once or twice, and then they moved to a Saturday afternoon. And I did it 2 or 3 times, and I hosted it one time for the guy who was doing it, just as a favor.
Hosting a show like that is hard.
There's no show to host. It was literally me, 4 comedians, and the bartender. That's it. And the bartender might have been the owner that night. The girl who was there, and that one guy who was the pain in the ass who just kept talking and laughing at himself. That's the worst part. He's not paying attention. He'll hear one word, and then he'll just repeat it. Right. Or he'll laugh off something else, and it's like...
And how do you... like this? I'm even asking to some extent as a comedian. I'm not just saying this hypothetically. How do you respond to that? Like, you're not dealing with somebody that can be talked to logically. Yeah. Like, you know, you'll be like, what's so funny back there? And then he'll just like... throw peanuts up in the air, and it's like, how the fuck do you respond to that? Like, it's not like a logical conversation you can have. You know what I mean?
It's one thing when you have a heckler who's mad at something that you say, and you can have a dialogue with that, or it's the people who are helping.
Oh God!
Like when there was like, oh, I'm adding things to this. You could talk to them, you can build something off of them, but when you're literally, I tried to address him because I've seen him before, I've dealt with him before, and I was addressing him to try and get at him a little bit, but just to understand the situation and bring him into it, so so at least now he's paying attention instead of just when a word bouncing around inside his tiny little pea brain that he recognizes and then starts
and then just
talks off of it. At least I can engage him in a conversation. I can say something. He could say something. I can come back with a quip. Luckily, he was at my point. He was not paying any attention at all, even when I addressed him. So I was like, "This is worthless. Let me just go back to the set I was doing."
And then it's like doing material in that situation also kind of sucks because it's like, oh God, you know, you're in front of like 8 comedians, of which 7 have seen this bit before. Yeah, and it's like you just like, at least with me, I'm like, I hate doing material that I know the comedians have seen, and like it's only for the comedians, like in those rooms where there's like two regular civilians and 7 people that have seen the joke. It's like, why am I even fucking saying this?
Yeah.
7 people can tell you my punchline before I say it.
The worst part is the owner and the bartender are doing nothing to stop the situation.
Oh,
occasionally they're like, shh, like they'll shush him, but it doesn't help what's going on because he's so drunk in general, and he's there every night getting drunk, and he's drunk all the time that his brain does not function properly. So there's nothing you can say or do.
Yeah, it's his brain. There's no logical way to handle it because he can't. Not he doesn't want to. He can't. Yeah, I never thought about that. Yeah, that's a good way to...
Well, that's the most frustrating ones because there's nothing you can do to control the situation. You can't change the situation at all. You can't control it. You can't change it. You can't deal with it. And the control is so far out of your hands. With a regular heckler, you can shut them down. Or you can ask them to be quiet, or you can make them leave. You can't make him leave because he doesn't understand what's going on at all. The ownership, he's there all the time. We've also invaded his space.
Yeah, because it's his ground. It's his stomping ground, right?
And it's also slightly he's trying to be slightly supportive. He's not helping. He just doesn't know that he's being a dick in his own head. So you can't get mad. It's like being mad when a dog knocks a thing over and he's like, knocks a cup over. He's like, I don't get why this is
a big deal.
Big deal. Like, you can't logically be mad at that. And that's what's more frustrating because you get mad because you can't get mad.
Right. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Yeah.
Oh, that's my big problem. That's my anger issues is when I get mad at things I can't control.
I look at intent and I'm like, sometimes people really think that they're helping out.
Yeah.
And I'll say this. Occasionally, by no means all the time. Occasionally they do, but but more often than not, it's a pain in the ass.
It's one of those. Yeah, sometimes they do help out. Very rarely, you're right, but it's also help you don't want.
Eric Tynan has a great story, and I shouldn't tell it because he tells it on stage, but I'm gonna tell it because I fucking love it. He goes, he's talking about hecklers, and he goes, "Worst heckle I ever got was right here," and it happened at Nick's Comedy Stop, and he goes, I was on stage and I told this joke and it didn't go over well. And there was just silence except for this guy in the front row who went, almost. And he's like, it was the most supportive heckle and it was the worst one I had ever heard in my life.
It's the verbal pat on that.
Yeah.
I could try, kid.
Yeah, almost. But that guy was trying to be helpful. Like, you can't be mad at him. I
don't even know if that's helpful. That's just more like... Oh,
it turned out he was incredibly helpful because Eric got an awesome joke out of it that he had to do no work for. You know what I mean? Like 0 work went into that joke for him and he gets this amazing joke out of it.
Yeah, that works. Well, maybe sometimes they are helpful and we just don't realize
That'd be a funny name for a podcast, although no one would really get the reference.
Just being helpful?
No. Oh, I wasn't even thinking that. I was just thinking almost. But no one would know that's the cadence that you said it in. Almost.
Yeah, you can't have, there's no almost font.
Right.
So, all right, with Uber, now that you're doing it, you do it in between things. Is there a time where you're like, hey, I know I'm going to get my best customers between X hours and X hours, and that's when I prefer to work?
I don't prefer to work early in the morning, but people need to commute to work. So, I'll get up at like 7 and I'll go do the morning commute. And, you can make more money during that because there's more rides to be had and there's also surge pricing. So it's like, I'll do it then. But
surge pricing in the morning?
Oh, yeah.
Really? Because I know about surge pricing. I know surge pricing during bad weather.
Anytime there's higher demand. So there's higher demand in the morning because people got to go to work. Yeah.
Really higher demand in the morning.
Way higher.
I know there's...
the morning commute and the going home commute, if it's not during winter break for the students, there's surge pricing. So, wow. And then the other thing is just more rides, so you don't have to wait as long. So, you might make at least, I don't know, you'll make 30 to 35, I'll say $30 an hour during surge pricing. So, yeah, I drive whenever it surges. So, like, the bars are getting out.
That's when that surge pricing makes sense to me when at late at night. That I get. I can't imagine there's a lot of people use Uber to go to work in the morning, huh?
Oh, a ton. And actually, you know what? At first, I was like, "Oh, this is extravagant," and then I thought about it. It costs $1,000 a month to have a car in Boston between a car payment, gas, parking spot, insurance, the random repair that you'll have to pay money for. It costs $1,000 a month if you have, like I said, a car payment and all that stuff. $1,000 a month. If you have a T-Pass, Okay, now that's that's like 60, 70. So now you have 900.
75.
Or 75.
something like
Okay,
that,
let's
yeah.
call it 75. Now you have $925 worth of Ubers that you can get every month before you break even on just having a car. I'm like, you can get a lot of Ubers for that. And think about it, you don't have to drive. So you can be checked out and like, doing something on your phone, or just the fact that you don't have to maintain a car or worry about, oh, am I going to get my parking spot, or am I going to have to shovel it out or whatever. It's like, for $1,000 a month you could live, like, I mean, I'm just making the situation up, but like, you might be able to live in the Seaport District, which for some people might be super close to work. And it's like, oh, now I can walk to work. You know what I mean? Because I have an extra $1,000 to spend on rent, But I mean, it's like, yeah, so a lot of people do Uber to work,
All right. Well, let me on that note of saving money. I don't own a car anymore. I used to own a car when I was in Baltimore, and I lost it about 7 years ago because whatever. So I don't have a car. I haven't been able to get back to a car. And one of my bosses said to me a while back, he moved from Seattle or wherever he was, from most recently from Seattle to Baltimore. Program director. We're at a bar watching an NFL game, talking. He's watching the game. I'm sitting there staring at a TV with colored pictures moving. And he says to me, he's like, so you don't own a car anymore? Man, you must be saving so much money. He's like, no, I don't have a car because I can't afford one anymore. So that's the scenario. It's like, and I get what you're saying. I don't know if there's that many people who would own a car and then get rid of a car or stop using the car just to take Uber to save that much money.
There are a lot. Like,
people do that.
Like,
really.
I have the conversation with a lot of people in the car. And it's funny. There's probably 10 conversations that I have over and over again with customers. It's just the course of stuff that comes up. And I'm like, oh, this is conversation A, and I'm like, I know how then you get to know people's lives a little bit. But one of them is the cost of having a car. That comes up significantly. And they'll be like, yeah, like once Uber came out, like, I just got rid of my car. They're like, you know what? I spend $600 a month on Uber, but they're like, and they break it down and they come to the figure of about $1,000. They're like, so, I save $400 a month by, not having a car. And they're like, occasionally if I need one, I'll get a zip car or I'll ask a friend for a ride, if it's far away or something like that. But you not having a car, you're not doing it. You're not getting one because you say you can't afford it, which believe me, I get that. But you do spend that money in other places. Although I guess you don't Uber that much. You said.
Oh, so. I don't Uber at all. Where I honestly, my transportation cost is the tea and shoes.
And shoes, okay. All right.
Which I buy shoes like once a year, so I'm not spending that much on shoes. So with real estate, because that's what you also do. Mm-hmm. Did you pick up Ubering to supplement in real estate? Or
well, yeah, because it's so no one rents apartments like in November, December, January. They just don't rent them. So it's like, geez, I gotta have something, and I'm not slaying my bills with my comedy money, so I need to pick up something to supplement.
Comedy money?
Yeah.
Comedy?
Oh, comedy money, yeah. Occasionally, sometimes stand-up comedians are paid for the shows they do. I've heard about this.
Dude, I've been just secretly adding up the tip amounts you were talking about through this conversation in my head, and I stopped adding them up at the point where it's like, those tip amounts are more money than I've made in comedy in the past 2 years.
Well, it's super frustrating until you start making money with it. But, that's the thing. I remember when I started comedy, I was like, imagine being able to make your living off of this. And it just seemed like such a far off distant thing. And who knows when it'll all click into place. But I'm like, no, now it's very attainable. Now I'm like, oh, no, that's something that like I could do. Like that's not like some pie in the sky dream anymore. But it's like, yeah, until you start, I don't know, breaking through those first couple barriers, it just almost seems like it's not a real thing.
Oh, yeah, no. I mean, I'm 5-6 years in. I know how real of a concept it is for certain people, and I know what I don't know, but I assume if I do these things, maybe, and if I get this, I know how achievable it is, but it's not something that I'm actively working towards. I enjoy just the process of entertaining. And to me, at this point, still money would be any bonus to it. Anytime I've done a bar show, because I also don't do the clubs. Mm-hmm. I'm doing the Laughs Bringer show next month for the first time.
Okay.
In hopes of them going, all right, well, you're good enough.
We'll give you a paid weekend, right? Or
a host or whatever, this and that. And the only thing,
even if it's just more guest spots, like it's
even that, yeah,
you just got to use it as a stepping stone. People are always like, "Oh, comedy's so hard," and there is an aspect to that being true, but so are other jobs.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like you're telling me the guy working construction, like getting up at 4:00 in the morning, that's easy? Bullshit. No. You know what I mean? That's fucking hard. But it's like, if you're gonna treat comedy as a career, you got to be willing to take those stepping stone. Like I said, like, if you do well on, the Bringer show at Laugh, all right, maybe it's a guest spot, and then the guest spot turns into a paid spot. And then, that just starts to get you into more places,
Yeah, and it's also a matter of the more work you're doing, the more people want to hire you.
Dude, I've said this. I've actually talked about you behind the scenes. Well, behind the scenes, I mean behind your back. I'm like, you know what I love that you do?
Don't worry, most of the comedy people are talking about me behind my back.
The website, the Twitter feed that you have, the Boston comedy shows.
Our Boston comedy.
Yeah, I'm like, I love that you do that, because I'm like, here's a guy that is doing something for the Boston comedy community with no guaranteed get anything back, no expectation of getting anything.
Yeah,
and
it
I
doesn't
see that,
make me funnier, trust me.
And I'm like, and it's not like you're getting 900 gigs because you do this, you know what I mean? But I'm like, oh, here's a guy that's doing something for the good of the Boston comedy community without any expectation of anything back. And I'm like, whenever I see it on Twitter, I'm like, oh, that's fucking awesome. I'm like, or my name pops up in something, I'm like, oh, well, that was awesome of him. Like, like it's just, I don't know. Like, I don't think you get any credit for that. And I'm like, it's appreciated.
Thank you. A couple people do say something here and there, especially Rob Crean and Amy Rose have been super nice and thankful about doing it. And I've worked really hard to not make my name and face.
Yeah, you don't put your name with it. I know that you do it, but it's like your name isn't with it.
Steve Marconi a couple weeks ago was when I mentioned it in conversation. Marconi went, "Wait, that's you?"
Right.
I'm like, yeah, I do a really good job
of not knowing, as I just blew your cover. So
no, there's an intro episode where I think I mentioned it in here.
How many followers does that even have? I don't even know.
The Twitter just is a little bit over 1,000 now, a little shy of 1,100. The Facebook page is just over 500. The subreddit is around 450.
What is Reddit and subreddit? I don't understand this.
Reddit is basically a community message board broken down into niche subjects.
Okay, so there'll be a Reddit comedy?
Yeah, there's a whole comedy section. Basically, all it is a message board. You post a message or you post a link, and then people comment on it. It's essentially an entire website devoted to just being a comment section.
Okay.
But it's all broken up into individual likes and interests. So that's it. So there's a whole Boston subreddit. The whole thing's called Reddit. Every individual category is called a subreddit. So Boston has their own category where people come and they post links and questions about Boston.
Now, will it be Boston sports, then Boston comedy, or is it just Boston and this falls into the Boston?
Each neighborhood in Boston has their own subreddit under that. And then there's people who volunteer to be the moderators. So they basically, each subreddit has their own special designs. You can make a design with just internet coding. You can make it how everything looks, but and different things. TV shows and whatnot that will have a lot of the the pictures of the show and whatnot. So it's basically like designing a website almost, and it all depends. Boston has its own category, its own subreddit, and then they break it down by neighborhoods too that are moderated by other people. And there's the Boston Calendar. They started theirs, which is the Boston Social Club. Yeah, our Reddit.com reddit.com/r/Boston Social Club, which is what the BostonCalendar.com is.
Okay.
So that's just basically people in a group in Boston say, "Hey, I'm going to this thing. Who wants to go and meet me?" It's a kind of a meetup group.
I was thinking about doing one of those meetup groups. I don't know what I want to meet up for, but I'm like, my roommate did one of them for soccer.
Meetup.com.
He was like, dude, it's great. He's like, I found out about this place. He's like, everybody plays soccer at noon, like right next to Harvard. He's like, there's like 40 people that play. And he's like, he found it from a meetup. And I was like, wow, really? Like, he's like, yeah. So I'm like, there's subcultures out there that I don't even know about. And I'm like, it'd be nice to have some friends outside the world of comedy. Because at this point in my life, like all of my traditional friends are like married and have kids, most of them. Yeah. So then it's like I've pretty much hang out with my comedy friends, which I enjoy, but it's like, it's also nice to have friends outside of the world of comedy that you can hang out with.
When I moved here, still to this day, 3 years, 95% of the people I know in this town are comedians
or
co-workers and people who work at comedy places.
Right, yeah, right, yeah. I was going to say comedy associated, like they're a booker or they're like a waitress.
Bartender,
yeah.
So I still need to do things, and I've used Meetup in Baltimore before I even moved. Before I moved here, I used Meetup to do group things, and it works. And it's groups of people who want to get together and have fun and make other people.
I was thinking about it might be a good way to promote comedy shows. Like if you go to meet up for basketball, and it's like, oh, so this is the group for basketball. Oh, I have a comedy show. Oh, really? Like.
No, that's part of promoting, man.
Yeah.
And I tell that like even when I was managing bands back in the early 2000s, when I was in my early 20s, I would tell them, like, guys, just you don't have to pitch your shows to people. You meet them, you talk to them, you mention you're a musician, and they will ask you, oh, where do you play out? And then you just have now naturally able to tell them. But you can't tell these people. If
I
you
will
don't leave
be
the
at
house.
Nick's comedy like or whatever. Yeah,
you have to get out of the house. Like just go to a bar.
I hate it when I'm being
comes up.
directly solicited by people. And when I say that, I mean, like, you ever get the message from a Facebook friend, and it'll be a Facebook friend that you're not that close with, and it's like, hey, please go and like my page or whatever, and it's like, and that's all it is, and it's like, I don't even know you, like, in the real world, and you just said, like, oh, all right, let me go like your page, like, I'm like, it's just, I don't know. I don't like that. It's like when you have a relationship with somebody of some sort, and it's like, hey, man, what's going on? If you'd like my page, that'd be great. Fine, I'll do it. You know what I mean? But I don't know.
Or like, at least if they post something and you have a quick comment section, and then you message like, oh, hey, by the way, since I'm talking to you and it's on my mind, I have this thing.
Right.
Could you go like it? It would help me out.
But when it's like, you like the same email's going out to 800 people.
Copy and paste.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is the worst. But so do your coworkers, do you work for a real estate agency or are you on your own? Okay. Is that so? You just work for them? It's not like a contract. It's not an independent contract.
It's independent contractor.
Okay.
I just work at an office.
Okay. So if you're an independent contractor, how's that office scenario set up? Is it just like, hey, you're working in conjunction with us, we're just helping you find people?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, more often than not, the agreement is that the broker that you work for, because you have to work for a broker, you can't be a sales agent and just, hey, I'm a sales agent and like I can go get listings. You have to work for a broker. So the broker takes half your commission.
What?
You're partially right in saying what, but they do provide you with a lot of value. And when I say that, one, legally you have to work for a broker, so you have to work for someone. That's one. Two, they pay for an office. They keep lights on. They provide you with printers. I mean, they do provide you with stuff that you need.
Okay. But you can't do any of that on your own.
You could put that. You could get a printer. You know what I mean? But like having a place, like for instance, my office is in a very good place in terms of foot traffic for college students, and it's like it's so visible that so many people just walk into the office. Like that wouldn't happen if I was renting apartments, out of my home. You know what I mean? So like they do provide you with value in that. They also have a relationship with so many landlords that here's some listings that you can go rent out, that the value of their relationship with these landlords is something that you couldn't do instantly. I mean, you'd have to build it over time. So there is value in it. But that being said, it is 50% of your money. That's
all right. So they are providing. They're worth it.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, if I really had to put a number on it, I mean, I think that, I don't know. I think 1/3 would be plenty. 1/3 of instead of half. But
1/3 sounds like a much more reasonable number too.
But that being said, half seems to be the industry standard. And when I say that, it's not like everyone gets together and says, well, it's going to be half, but the percentages are usually close to that.
But can you do real estate without a broker?
Not legal. No, you can't.
Okay. So they are a necessity on that.
Yeah.
You can't go completely on your own office, find your own listings, make your own relationships.
You can become a broker, but you have to have done real estate for 3 years.
Okay.
You have to be employed for 3 years, and I actually just got my broker's license, but I'm going to continue to work for my broker.
Okay, so if you get your broker's license, you could broker and do real estate at the same time, right?
yeah, you could work for yourself. But that being said, it's like I don't have any of the value of those relationships like that my broker has. Where I mean, I'm making up a number. I really don't know. But like, let's say that they might have 500 landlords that they deal with, and some of those landlords have tons of properties. Some of them have one. Some of them have 500 units. But it's like, oh, look at all these places that I can rent because I work for this guy. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like, so the broker does provide you value in that respect.
Does the broker seem like an unnecessary middleman, though?
Yes and no. If you can do, like, if you're well versed and you can do the job yourself, then yeah, it does seem like an unnecessary middleman. But one of the things about being a broker is you have to have been a salesperson for 3 years. So now, granted, the broker I work for has been doing this for I don't know how many years, but it's a lot. It's a lot more than 3. But it's like, you know, I still have questions. I've been doing this for over 3 years, and I still don't know how to do certain aspects of it. And I'm like, I need to go to somebody to figure out, you know, how to do this thing in general or how to do this thing specifically for this landlord. Like, this landlord might want this paperwork done this way. You know what I mean? And he'll have that information. Whereas, you know, just a regular salesperson probably wouldn't have it.
Is a broker to real estate the equivalent of a manager is to entertainers? Would you say? I know you don't have a manager or a booking agent, but
no, I don't
think you do.
I don't think
never came up. So
no, I don't. But it's like I don't think that's really there's some parallels with it, but I don't think that's really a good analogy.
Okay, all right, fair enough. So with real estate, why did you get into real estate? Let's even go on that because
I was gonna get my real estate license to save on commissions for properties that I planned on investing in. I was like, I'm going to get a multifamily house, and I'm like, I might as well save on the commission. And I'm like, I'll have my real estate license, so I'll be able to do this again. And while I was getting my license or planning to get my license, I bumped into my friend Greg, and I mentioned it in passing. And he's like, dude, you get your license or you're getting your license? I was like, yeah. And he goes, why don't you come work for me? I was like, Greg, I'm just doing this to save on commissions. To tell you the truth, I'm like, I'm like, I really have trouble with day jobs, and I'm like, I'm just gonna focus on comedy. And he goes, what don't you like? I go, I'm like, the hours, and he, I don't want to be locked in 9 to 5. He goes, dude, you make your own hours. He goes, I have appointments for you to go on. I call you. He's like, if you want to go on the appointment I give you, go on it. If you don't go. And I was like, I don't really want to get dressed up anymore for work, Greg. I really want to be casual because my dress code is don't have a bunch of tattoos and wear a tank top. That's my dress code. He's like, can you handle that? And I'm like, yeah. He's like, what else? And I'm like, I don't know. That's really about it. And he goes, then come work for me. And I was like, okay. So I went to work for him for like a couple of years or something like that. And then I switched to another broker.
What were you doing before when you were thinking about getting your real estate license?
I was unemployed at that time, but before that, I had sold copiers for 10 years. That's a hard gig. I look back on that, I'm like, how the fuck did I last in that industry for 10 years? Like,
how difficult is it to sell copiers?
It's hard. Because you're selling something that somebody doesn't need consistently. You know what I mean? Okay. It's like...
Well, see, I'm thinking the only people you're trying to sell copiers to are businesses.
They are. Yeah. It's businesses. But it's like, okay, we just got this copier. The lease is up in 5 years. And it's like, all right, put some notes together and start contacting this guy in 4 years. You know what I mean? So you got to stumble upon people that are looking at that moment. That's the hard part. And then the other thing is...
nobody's going to go, hey, our copier has been good to us, but that new model, it's got some good DPIs. Let's switch it up.
Yeah, they don't do that. It's not even like having a car where it's like, oh, man, that car is really sexy. And the current car I have is awesome, but that one's even better. I'm going to get the better one. It's like, no, it's a copier. Like they don't switch them out unless there's something super bells and whistles that came on that's going to make their life greater.
My work, I wish we could get Apple AirPrint so I could just print from my phone wirelessly, and they just don't care.
So like, I'll put it to you this way. That might be the type of bell or whistle to make, like, I don't know, a place that does a ton of printing, like, I don't know, like a law firm or something. They might be like, you know what, that'll really help our employees. We'll upgrade this thing early. But other than that, it's like, until the thing's broken, like, and they're not going to get it fixed, they don't go out and buy them. So it's like, and I had to sell a lot of them. Like, my quota was about $45,000 a month. And it was like, the turnover, I don't know how many people came and went at my company while I was there, but it was a lot. Like, it was in the hundreds. And I look, and I know the industry, and it's like people are consistently at a company for 2 years and out, or less than 2 years. It might be 6 months. And I'm like, I stayed at the same company for 10 years selling copiers, a $45,000 quota, which means that for the models I was selling, I was going to have to sell like 8 or 9 a month. And I'm like, how the fuck did I do that? But I did it. I'm like, I don't know. I didn't like doing it. The job really drove me crazy. And I was just like, I got to get out.
Did you ever like that one was like, hey, we're a new business. We're starting a big office building. And you said you had to do 8 or 9 a month. And they're like, hey, you know what? We got 6 floors. Let's put 6 of them in there. You're like, yes.
Yeah.
Did that ever happen?
Yeah. I had done a deal with a customer, and the customer had bought in this product, and I was like, great. They bought this product. It's awesome. It worked great. It was in there for a couple of years. The customer called me back and was like, hey, give me 3 more of the kind that I bought before, please. He's like, and just, send the paperwork over. I'll do it. And I was like, okay. And I was super pumped. I'm like, here's a phone call for 3 of these things. This is great. And then before I could like do anything else, I went to this company meeting, and they were like, we've got a deal for you guys. Like, oh my God, like we got such a great deal on this piece of equipment. We bought it in bulk. And they're like, we're going to up your commission rate by double. They're like, we want to push these. They're like, we committed to buy 100 of these machines. And they're like, normally we buy like 10. They're like, we're going to double the commission rate. Here you go. And it's on the one that some guy just called me for. So I'm like, holy crap. Like, this is amazing. This is awesome. So I'm doing the paperwork for this guy, and the deal takes about maybe a week to put together and get him to sign it. And I go to have him sign it, and he's like, oh, by the way, my friend's opening up an office, and he wants 3 of these as well. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. I'm like, and now they're doubling my commission rate, and I'm selling 6 of these things out of nowhere. I'm like, oh my God, this is... When it was all said and done, I ended up having like a $20,000 commission. And I was like, and they were really big, big. They weren't. I wasn't selling a little rinky-dink copier. I mean, I was selling a big thing, and I'm like, it was a high-priced machine, and I'm like, I was just walking around like, I don't believe this just happened. Like, I just got. Imagine somebody coming up to you and be like, oh, here's $20,000. Like, it was like, oh my God, that was.
Yeah, they basically handed you the sale.
Right.
Oh, that's so great.
And then there's other times that you just bust your ass and you're going at it over and over and over again, and it's like, congratulations, here's your $100 commission on those 9 hours of work that you put in over the course of 7 months with this person. And it's like, it's not worth your time.
Did you start doing comedy when you were selling copiers?
Yeah. And I think that's kind of what made me get out of selling copiers was I was like, I really want to do comedy. And it was just like, I didn't like selling copiers. Like, I did it because I made a nice income off of it, and I'm grateful for that. But towards the end, it was just like I was so mentally checked out on the job, and not even on purpose. It wasn't like I was like, well, I'm not going to work today, but it was like that's the results I was getting because I was so not into doing it. You know what I mean? And I was like seeing it like, oh, you can possibly make a living in comedy. You know what I mean? And I was like, so then when I got fired from this company, I didn't even view it as a negative thing. I was like, I am so mentally checked out on this job. It wasn't even on purpose, but it was just like, you can't get results or good results if you're just not into doing something in the least. You know what I mean? And by the end of it, it was like, I am so not into this, So. How
long were you doing comedy when you got fired?
I don't know, 2 years.
Okay, so you were just starting out in comedy.
Let me see. Yeah, 2 years. Maybe a little bit more.
About 2 years.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing comedy now?
7.
7? Okay. Yeah. So it was about 5 years ago or so that you lost the job?
Yeah. It's a little over 5. I got I think it was December of 2010.
Jeez. So you were selling copiers, you started doing comedy. You got fired from the job, you were doing comedy. Did you start putting more effort into comedy at that moment?
Yeah, I moved to LA.
Did you?
Once I got fired, I was just like...
I had no idea you were in LA.
Yeah, for almost a year. I moved back. I was a little bit homesick at the time, but I look on it now and I'm like, I kind of want to go back and tell you the truth. This is all very loose, but I'm like, I think I have a plan of moving back there in the fall. And, but I'm like, yeah, I think that's kind of the plan. I'm like...
Well, you can still continue the Ubering when you go there.
Yeah, but
Clearly.
but that's not what I'm worried about. I'm just kind of like, I think that it's the next move. Although I say this, it's like, I don't know how you feel, but I'm like, there might be a big part of you that wouldn't have got into comedy if you knew what a pain in the ass it was.
That's what held me up, is I knew how much of pain. I should have started comedy in my early 20s.
I wish I started in my early 20s. I wish it started in my teens.
Yeah.
And I was so afraid of it that I didn't do. I wanted to be a comedian ever since I was a little kid. And I'm like, I basically sat fearful of it for 20 years before I did it.
See, it wasn't fear. It was I know how much work it takes to put into this, and it's not at this moment what I want to do. It's just something I would like to do.
No, see, I had no idea how much work it would take. I thought it'd be like, oh, you do it for 4 or 5 years and you become famous and that's it. And you collect your millions of dollars. And
yeah, I imagine some people think that way, but I didn't. I never do, because I was always a comedy fan growing up and always in entertainment. And my route for entertainment, because I don't consider myself a comedian as much as an entertainer, my route for entertainment was going to be radio. And then things happened and I switched, and now I'm glad I'm doing comedy. And I'm still doing radio, but comedy. I wish I had started 10 years earlier, though.
I completely do. And I mean, because it is a little bit frustrating as you're getting older and it's like, oh, geez, money's tight. It's fine if money's tight in your 20s. In your early 20s, it's like, who gives a shit? You know, you get a little bit older and it's like, oh, geez, it would be nice to be able to pay my rent without, having to forsake food for 2 days. You know what I mean? Or something along that nature.
Well, even the simple thing of wanting to pay your rent without having to wear a name tag.
Yeah.
When you're in your 30s,
right,
becomes a humongous thing.
So I do wish I started earlier, but whatever, it is what it is. Yeah. And, nothing holding me back from being successful now. But where I was originally driving with this was in comparison to LA. And I'm like, now I know what a pain in the ass it is to move to LA to do comedy, because it's like, here I have tons of book shows that I can go on and I can make money on them. And it's like, now I know, because I've done it before. It's like, oh, you kind of got to go out there and establish yourself from the ground floor again. And it's like, I have the benefit of at least having some connections out there now. And I'd like to think I have a lot stronger act now than I did 5 years ago. You know what I mean? So I have those two things working for me. But it's like, if I go to LA, the first time I went, I had no idea that it was that much more work to do. You know what I mean? I'm like, now I know. But I always think about that in terms of comedy. Like, geez, would you get into it if you knew how much work it was going to be?
I would agree. Most people don't know how much effort they have to put in. And also, when you're starting out, sometimes you don't realize all the things you're doing. Like, you're starting out here in comedy. Yeah, you now know enough people. You can get booked. You can get paying gigs. And you have to start all over again from the bottom in LA. Mm-hmm. If you had started in LA, you wouldn't have been thinking about those things. You would have built those relationships. Right. So that is a little bit different than when you're already established. You know what you've had to do. You know what you've gone through. Then to move to another city, you have to start all of that over again.
Right.
That is a much more work and a pain in the ass because you're now realizing the work you have to put in.
Right. Yeah, 100%. It's like, sometimes ignorance is bliss. Sometimes it is. You know what I mean? They always say ignorance isn't bliss. I'm like, sometimes it is.
Is there a reason why you went to LA instead of New York?
I hate cold weather.
Okay.
And actually, to tell you the truth, I'm also not that big on New York. I'm not trying to hate on it, but I'm like, people are always like, New York's the greatest place in the world. And I'm like, I don't know, man. It's crowded. It's expensive. It's dirty. The city never sleeps. I'm like, your city should take a nap every now and then. It's like, it's weird when you like walk around the city at 3:00 in the morning and there's like trash trucks and there's still like people walking around.
I'm not a humongous fan of New York. I like New York.
I like to visit. I go to see my friend Craig once a year, twice a year or something. And that's enough for me. I'm like, I do like that New York's closer to Boston. Like, that's nice. Like,
that's why I ask. Yeah.
But I'm like, I hate the cold. And I'm like, and also you have to deal with New York sports teams.
Yeah, the sports team. Right. Dealing with sports team in general is just a non-issue in my life. Just they're there. I don't care. Yeah, even in Baltimore, I followed the Ravens and the O's a lot more in Baltimore because I couldn't help it, and all my friends are. But now that I moved away, I know nothing that's going on. Right. I even worked for a sports talk station for a few years.
Really?
Yeah, I was the only time I knew anything about sports was when I worked for the station, and it's because I was the second in charge of running the O's games.
Okay.
So when we were a flagship station in DC, so there was a Baltimore station. They fed it to us, and There was another guy.
And
there
you talking on the radio saying things like, he's doing the thing with the wood.
Oh, no, I'm not even talking. All I'm doing is running the game.
All right.
They send us the feed. I turn the game on, turn the game off, go to commercial, turn the game back on. That's all I did. But I also had to cut highlights for the sports station guys. So I knew the most about the O's then. And then on Sundays, I'd run a couple NFL games. And occasionally like a college basketball game because we were a flagship for a couple college games.
Okay.
And that's the only time I knew anything about the O's. And I love the O's. And I love going to a baseball game. And if I'm somewhere and it's on, I can watch and pay attention and I can cheer along. But for the most part, if I went the whole rest of my life never watching another sporting event, I would not miss it.
I was saying this, talking about baseball. I loved baseball growing up. Like, oh my God, did I love it. Baseball and basketball were my two big things that I did. And I love the Red Sox. Like, I mean, I could go on for hours about like my experience as a kid, as a youth. But since they've won 3 championships in a very short amount of time, and I think the way our attention spans have become trained with like cell phones and just everything is so quick and, instant gratification. And baseball's a slow moving game. I was talking with like some friends recently and I'm like, I'm just not into the Red Sox on the level that I used to be. It's not like I hate them or anything like that. I mean, they're still my favorite baseball team, and it's not even close. I mean, but it's like, I used to live and die with this team, and like, oh my God, what are they doing? And like, a game in the middle of July, and I'd be like, oh God, all right, oh well, geez, if they win this game, then they can do this, and they're this far out of the playoffs, and oh my God, why did they tell the runner to steal second? There was, 1 out. They should have, I'm like, and I like the amount of interest that I had would just be off the charts. I'm a little bit satisfied with all these championships. I'm not as hungry for them like as a fan. And I'm like, and the way, like I said, I think that we're in an instant gratification society. And it's like, yeah, baseball's kind of slow moving. I'm a little bit concerned for baseball, like going forward. I'm like, it is a slow game. And I'm like, people don't like slow stuff anymore.
Yeah, and I think that's one reason why football has taken over. Now, all right, my opinion on sports is why people love football more than baseball is because not so much of pace as much as it is, because to me, when I watch football, it's 30 seconds, it's 3 minutes of planning for a 10-second play that fails, and then they take a break.
Yeah,
so the pace is the same, but I think it's easier you can cheer more, and you know exactly when to cheer. That's why people don't like soccer, because soccer is 90 minutes of fast-paced thing, but the only time you're cheering is when there's a goal going on. Because you don't notice the minute details they do, the plays and the trick and how much skill is involved. You don't see that unless you're a really deep soccer fan. So football, easy to know when to cheer, and you can cheer often. Baseball, again, similar. You only cheer when somebody hits the ball, and now in this day and age, hits do become rarer. So I think that's why people love football more than anything else, is they just know instantly when to cheer.
Yeah, and I agree with that. And it is an action sport. Like when the game is actually being played, it's an exciting play. But whereas like a routine ground ball to the first baseman isn't exactly making your nipples hard.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like when the quarterback's dropping back and someone's breathing down his neck and he throws the ball through a little window and the guy catches it, awesome. If the defender blocks it, it could still be awesome. You know what I mean? It's like, so there's more excitement usually in the play. And like you said, oh, they got the first down. Let's cheer. Oh, they got the touchdown. Let's cheer. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Now, is there inside? Because personally, if I move out of here, my intention is to go to LA over New York, even though I know New York is a capital. It's basically the stand-up capital. But I want to do more things in entertainment. LA is the place to go for that. The only thing that changes for me is I love an urban environment. I love being in a city. I love high buildings. I love being able to walk to things and everything being within a distance. I like that. Are you an urban environment guy, or do you think, because Boston's not very urban to me?
Oh, see, I think Boston is very urban.
I don't think it does not feel urban to me at all, especially here in Brighton.
I was going to say, even where you live, I still consider this very urban, even though it's more residential. But yeah, I totally consider Boston to be urban. Like, it's not New York. I mean, but then again, New York's such a weird animal. You know what I mean? Like, that's New York isn't. It's just crazy. Like when you look down on New York, like from the sky, and you just see how many buildings are there, it's crazy. So that's its own thing. I mean, take New York out of the equation, I consider Boston to be pretty urban.
See, I grew up in Baltimore, so I know Baltimore. Baltimore City is so a typical. New York and Baltimore are typical urban environments to me. When I'm here in Boston, all of it almost feels like the suburbs to me. Even when I'm down by the Commons.
It's not black enough.
Well, you guys do a great job here in Boston of hiding your black people, but
we're excellent at that. Yeah, LA's more suburban for sure than, like New York. Yeah, but I mean, maybe even Boston, because California, I mean, LA is so spread out. It is crazy. Yeah. Like, they're always like, LA is so huge. I'm like, well, what they consider LA is huge. It would be like if we considered Boston from Brockton to like Gloucester. If we consider that Boston, you'd be like, Boston is huge. Yeah. Well, there's like 30 different cities that make up LA that, they just call LA. Like Santa Monica is LA. North Hollywood is LA. You know what I mean? It's like, well, yeah. But anyways, I do think it is more suburban. And to answer your question, I find myself as I'm getting older that I like a more suburban feel than city. Like, not like I'm anti-city, but I'm like, I went on a few sales calls for this job I had recently, and they would be like an hour outside of Boston. And even just an hour outside of Boston, it's so drastically different. I'm like, oh my God, it's a lot nicer out here. It's just a lot quieter. There's a lot more space between yards. And I was just like, it's just nice. I'm like, I don't know. I'm getting into that a little bit more as I get older.
I guess I could see where somebody would get in that in their older age. And I'm pretty sure maybe in a few more years that, I'll start feeling that way. But I grew up in Baltimore County, but the part of the county I was in was very urban compared to other parts of the county. So when I would go out, I'm in a suburb, but it still felt very city-like to me. And then I lived in the city for a number of years before moving here. So I just love that closeness of everything. And we're not that far apart in age. So maybe when I get a little bit older, I'll start wanting that settled down, quiet environment. For right now, even at 34, I still love noise. I love the hustle.
Yeah, I'm not like offended by it, but I'm like, I get it a little bit more now. You know what I mean? I'm like, oh, I could see myself living in the suburbs. Just talking about getting it when you're older, I just think this is funny. My buddy Jeff was telling me about these twins that he's friends with, and one brother is 8 minutes older than the other brother, and whenever they get into an argument, he goes, "Trust me, you'll understand when you're older." And then the follow-up joke is 8 minutes later, the other brother will be walking around and just go, "You know what? You're right. Yeah, you were right." And I'm like, that's great. And he goes, "It's just their thing. You'll get it when you're older." And then he comes back 8 minutes later, you were right.
So what brought you back from LA?
747. Let's see. I came back because I wanted to go to Newport for the summer. I would get a house every summer with this group of guys in Newport, and I was talking. Actually, I hung out with them like last night, and it's rare that I get to hang out with these guys because they're all kids and family now. But I look back on it, I'm like, it was. I hope that I have stuff that's better, but I'm like, I look back and I'm like, it was the funnest time of my life. Like, I can't tell you what an awesome collection of dudes we had in these summer houses that we would get. And Newport's just like such a summer fun community, and it's like it costs so much money to get a house in Newport, but if you have 12 guys that all go in on this house, all of a sudden the cost becomes quite reasonable. So for basically like, I don't know, $1,200, you'd have a summer home in Newport. But
you're also living with 11 other people.
Yeah, but not everybody comes down every weekend, and the house was huge.
Okay.
I mean, like, it was, geez, I don't even know how many bedrooms. I think there was 5 bedrooms and 2 living rooms where people could sleep. So, I mean, like, it wasn't like everyone was down there every weekend, and, the place was so big, it wasn't that bad. It really wasn't too much of an issue. But the collection of guys was just so great, and I would tell him, I'm like, man, I like, it was the funnest time of my life. That group of guys, we would just laugh, and the summers were about laughing and hooking up with women, and it was just awesome. Like, it was amazing how much fun you'd have. And when I was in LA, I'm like, well, I'll come back for the summer and I'll do Newport. And I did. And I had a great time. And then when the summer ended, I was just kind of like, geez, I don't know, I'm kind of having fun here. And I'm like, I don't feel like going back. And I just stayed. And I'm okay with the decision, but at the same time, I thought about it recently. I was like, geez, if you stayed out there, I'm like, you would have had, and you just stayed now, I'm like, you would have been out there for 5 years. I'm like, where would your career be now. And maybe it would be worse. I mean, I don't know it would be better, but maybe I would have fallen into something else. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I don't look at that with regrets, but I'm like, I do think about going back. I'm like, I don't know, probably done just about all I'm going to do in Boston. There's really not much. I'm not saying I couldn't get better at comedy. I can definitely get better at that. But I'm like, well, what more am I going to do while I'm here? I'm like, I've done just about everything you can do in Boston for comedy, you know?
Well, all right. So let me ask you this about with working and doing comedy. Ubering, you've already kind of mentioned that is amazingly convenient for you to do comedy, because if you're going from gig to gig, you have an hour time. Hey, drive people around.
Make $30, right? Boom.
Did you find working when you were doing sales with copiers and now with real estate as well, because you make your own hours on real estate, but there's still an office hours you kind of keep, I'm sure. Does the working comedy, especially early in the years when you were staying, at open mics for late and whatnot, does that affect?
No, not really, because the only time that it ever affected was I went to this networking group on Thursday mornings, and I had to be in Wakefield at 7 a.m, which means I had to be up at 6 to get there for 7, and I would do the Wednesday show at the Burren, and I could possibly be home at 12:30. And I'm like, if I got home at 12:30 and had to get up at 6, it was such a brutal day. Like, it would just be like, I can't fucking believe I got to go into war. And it was just brutal. That's the only time that it affected. Because I'm like, other than that, I'd be home by 11. And, I could go to my first appointment or cold call or whatever at 9, which means I could get up at like 8. I mean, it wasn't really hurting me.
Those are manageable hours. They really are. But also, Boston closes down so early here. Mm-hmm. I'm used to, staying at a bar till 2:00 and then maybe going home when it closes at 2.
Right.
But again, I knew every bartender basically in Baltimore, so I could, close down. Dennis, just sit there. Not a lot, but enough. No, it happened a lot. But here, even though still things close down, there's still some mics that end up going long and late and hanging out with other comedians, because the part of comedy, besides being funny, is the camaraderie. Yeah. Knowing each other and making friends and hanging out.
And there is value in that, but I'm like, I don't know. And I definitely do that, but it's like, if I go to an open mic and there's 40-something people, I'm like, I don't have the wherewithal to sit through it anymore. I just don't. And I don't know if I'm going to do a good job painting this picture, but people are always like, oh my God, like, can you believe what this 1% does to the rest of the world? And I'm one of those people that says that, like, oh, they're really screwing us or whatever. And like, I would never do that if I was in that powerful situation. Well, then I also look at this, like, when I, have established relationships with people, and it's like I can walk into a room and be like, hey, can I get on? And, yeah, sure, we'll put you on. And, there are people that will put me on a list, and, there'll be 40 people on the list and they'll put me right up. And it's like, thank you so much. I truly appreciate that. At the same time, I just screwed 40 other people, X amount of minutes. You know what I mean? And I'm like, oh no, I'm doing that now. You know what I mean? And it's like, I look at I'm given that power, and I don't stick around for those other 40 people. I mean, sometimes I stick around, and I might watch 4 or 5 of them or something like that, but I'm not staying till the end of the show. Yeah. And it's like, am I being a jerk? I don't know. I have a certain amount of clout that allows me to get on the show and get out of there if I want to. And I'm like, I usually just go and do another spot. And it's like, I don't know. I can see how that can be viewed as being a jerk, but I'm like, I also got to take my life into consideration here. You know what I mean? And I don't want to stay till midnight to, support the open mic for 3 hours after I've gone. I just don't want to do it. And it's like, once you're given that power and you have the ability to do it, it's like, that's why I look at the 1%er that, that's screwing the rest of the population. And I'm like, yeah, I can say I wouldn't do it, but until I'm there, I don't know. Maybe I would be like, I need another 7 yachts and you can't have any food. I'm like, maybe that's,
Well, I know there's places where I can go, like, hey, can I go on earlier, please? And I can ask them, they'll say yeah, and I don't ask often. And John Paul and Rob Crean, who run Middle East, have been very gracious with me, because they know I get up at 4 a.m. every day to go to work.
Yeah. That Middle East is another one I remember actually being like, oh my God, I got to stay here so late to go on. And that would actually fuck me up the next day for work. I do remember that.
Yeah. And my rule is 11 was with Middle East in most places is 4:30 at 11:30. I'm gone no matter what. If I go on, great. If I don't get on, tough shit. That's fine. That's the way the cookie crumbles. It's because of travel and getting up, and I don't want to stay there past 11:30. So I leave at 11:30 every time. Some other mics, depending on what it is and what my bus schedule is and distance, that time varies. Like Kings, I would, for whatever reason, I always stayed at Kings until the end if I wasn't on yet. I don't know what it was about Kings that made me like, I'm going to sit here until I go on stage. I don't know why I'm not leaving early.
I haven't done that place. Do they still do? I have done it. I'm sorry, I haven't done it in a while. Is what I meant to say. They don't do it anymore.
No, yeah, they less than a year ago, a couple months ago, maybe 6 months ago, they canceled it. They're doing a music only open mic with featured music acts. They just didn't want to do the comedy part anyway, which sucks because I love the space, I love the employees, and honestly, out of all the open mics in Boston, they have the best food.
No,
I think Tavern has the second best food.
I like Tavern's.
Better beer selection.
I like Tavern's food a lot. My only thing is it is a little expensive. I notice by the time I pay for my meal and tip, it's usually like $18 to $20, and I'm like, I'm more of like an $11 or $12 meal kind of guy, and it's like you want to support the place that you're doing comedy, but I'm like, I also have to support
bills.
Myself, and I got bills, and but that's one thing. Oh God, who was it? I think it was Mariel Cabral put a post up on Boston Comedian page recently. And said, you see it, and it's like what do you tell open micers? And one of the things was support the place that's having the open mic, and it's true. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if I try to be as supportive as I can, and sometimes obviously I don't have in my mind, you're just like, hey, you're an 11, 12 meal kind of person. If I go out for drinks and food, I always expect to pay between 20 and 25. Mm-hmm. So that's my expectation. When I know I can't just throw $20 to $25, I'll have, at worst, if I just get a water, I still always tip for waters. Mm-hmm. So at least that bartender's making money. It doesn't help the sales, whatever. But I think even if you at least do that,
that's fine.
That's better than doing nothing. And then sometimes I'm there, I don't get a water, I don't get anything, and I'll throw $2 at the bartender, or I won't at all sometimes. And we can't all, financially support them as much as we all, I think, want to sometimes. But the amount of money we put into beers and food at open mic places is probably equivalent to the tuition at a college.
I'd love to see what I've spent at places over the years. It adds up. It definitely does. I think about all the shows I've done for free in my life. I'm like, imagine if I just got $25 for each of them. Just 25. I'm like, $25 for every show that I've done for free in the past. Like, just here's a pile of money. I'm like, oh my God, that would be amazing. You know what I mean? And there's people that in comedy could take that amount of money that I have and have made that in a single night many times over.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. Good for them. I heard Chris Rock say once, I thought this was great. He goes, both his parents, I believe, were educators. I think they were lawyers. That's what it was. I think they were lawyers. Whatever, I'm getting off the point. But he said that, he goes, when he finished high school, his parents were like, so do you want to go to college? And he's like, nah, I don't think so. I want to go do comedy. And they were like, what? And he goes, how are you going to, geez, why don't you become a teacher or something? And he goes, well, let me ask you this. He goes, if I was a teacher, and he goes, I made $30,000 a year. And he goes, would you be okay with that? And he goes, his parents were like, well, yeah. And he goes, I think I can make at least $30,000 a year doing comedy, and I'll be happy. And I was like, wow. Think about that. It's the equivalent of being a teacher, in terms of money, or at least at the time that he was saying it. You know what I mean? And I was like, he's got a point. His parents had a problem with him being a comedian until he showed, if I made this, it would be just like teaching, right? And they were like, yeah, well, okay.
I never heard that story, but that's a good one. That's a good point on that.
Yeah, that guy's got some good insights. I don't know if you've ever watched him.
Do your coworkers at your real estate know that you do comedy?
Yeah.
Is that do you have to deal with the, hey, are you going to totally use this?
Yeah.
Oh, it's the worst. I don't think we can get away from that as comedians.
It's very seldom that anyone ever brings an idea that I'm like, ooh, that is good. But it does happen occasionally. But I had somebody recently email me an idea, and I was just like, no. It wasn't even remotely. It wasn't even and it wasn't even a premise. It was, you should do jokes about this guy. And I was like, well, not like, well, you ever thought about this perspective of this person or what it must feel? And I was like, I remember Dan Bulger told me once, somebody said to him, goes, hey, you know what you should do? And he's like, what? He goes, you should do some George Bush jokes. And he's like, well, like about what? He's like, yeah, just, do some Jewish, and he's, it's fucking dumb, you know what I mean? But yeah, to answer your question, yes, people at my work do, hey, how about this? How about this? And 90% of the time, I don't want to work with it. You know what I mean? Every now and then, I'll be like, oh, that's kind of an interesting idea. Maybe, but I don't think I've ever, that's a lot. Probably once or twice I've had people that have brought an idea. I was like, ooh, that is good. Actually, I'm thinking of one of them now. My friend Alexis, it was either her or her husband emailed me and said, I thought of something, like, you might want to hear it. And I'm like, if on the stage, I'm like, yeah, what is it? And their kid said something to her, like, Mom, how come at night you always do those half sneezes? And she's like, what? Yeah, you always half sneeze at night. And she's like, what do you mean? She goes, I was walking by your bedroom and I just hear you go, but you never chew. So that's how Mom sneezes at night. And I was like, look at your reaction right now.
Oh my God! I've never heard sex referred to as a half sneeze.
You always do the half
sneeze. Great surprise.
You do the half sneezes at night. And she's like, I had no clue. And I was like, that is fucking amazing. Like, that is a great joke or premise. You know what I mean? I'm like, I don't know how I'd work it in, but I'm like, it is that. Isn't that great? Like,
yeah, let's workshop that joke right now.
Yeah.
That goes as because you do a lot of jokes about relationships and dating.
I do. Yeah, I have a fair chunk of it. Yeah.
You were dating a woman with a kid. You heard the kid say that.
Oh, I'm done.
Yeah.
Finished. All right.
And I can't wait for my 5-cent residual checks every time you talk.
Actually, I just thought about this too. I used to have a joke I would do, and I haven't done it in years, and I could probably swing this into it too. I go, yeah, I don't like masturbating to MILFs on the internet because I'm like, it sounds good, but I'm like, I get these feelings of guilt whenever I watch these videos, I go that I'm screwing up this imaginary marriage, and I'm like, I can't pleasure myself to that. I go, so now I don't focus on MILFs. Instead of focus on mothers I like to fuck, I focus on smiles. I'm like, single mothers I'd like to enter. So maybe that I'll throw in single mothers I'd like to enter, but throw it in now to, her son was wondering why she half sneezes. And there we go.
There you go. I can't wait to see you do it at the next.
I'm sure you'll see it in the next week or two.
In the next Revere show we're both on.
Actually, the Revere show that dude booked was really good.
Margaritas? Yeah.
The Somerville one. Bitch. Then again, it was the first time they were doing it, so I'll give it a little leeway. But
well, also that there's no way you would know that place is doing anything because they don't have a door. It's mostly it's all brick.
It's such a bland-looking building that looks like nothing is in there.
Yeah.
And how do they stay? I was wondering, how do they stay open? Like,
I haven't figured that out either.
I have no idea. Like, I know Wednesday night's not a hopping night, like it's gonna be packed, but it was like that was a Wednesday, I think, right? I don't whatever.
Thursday.
There was outside of the comedians, there was like 3 people there. I was just like, how do you stay open?
Yeah, well, they do a lot of bands, and I assume the bands are what's drawing people in there. So if there's not a band there, there's no who are bringing their friends and promoting, then they're not bringing.
And even then, I mean, how many fans could they, the local band be bringing if that's what you're relying on to stay in business? Like, I mean, I don't know, whatever these, like the Green Dragon open mic brings a lot of comedians, and some people go specifically to watch comedy. But if you were depending on that to keep the Green Dragon open, you're fucked.
Oh yeah.
They view it as this is one thing. If they're depending on bands to fill that place, I don't know how they do it.
Well, cover bands will. Cover
Really?
bands will bring that, but at PAs, there's not really a lot of. From what I understand, it's not a lot of cover bands. It's mostly, original music, punk rock, and rock, metal, and stuff like that. That's what I see goes on there. I don't go to the place other than the few times to do comedy. But yeah, not a lot of foot traffic. It's a sketchy looking building.
It's wicked sketchy looking.
And
There's no advertising. I didn't know what it was. I don't think it says PA's Lounge. I think it just says PA.
Yeah, it says PAs. That's it. So yeah, it's not I hate talking bad about places. But it's not like they're going to hear this anyway.
Right.
But but they're doing it to their own business. They have to. The owner has to own the property because there's no way he's paying rent to somebody.
Yeah.
He has a low overhead because he doesn't hire. He doesn't really have any employees. They clearly don't pay for a cleaning staff.
Right. Or heat.
Yeah, or the heat. Yeah. So
That room was fucking cold.
It was very cold in there, and it is winter, and it's cold everywhere in Boston when it's in winter time. So, but this has not been at least as bad of a winter so far than last year. Yeah, there was all of us knocking just to make sure. But all right, so talking about Uber though, do you tell? Because you were saying you have these same conversations with people. Mm-hmm. Do you tell the same things to
lot of
customers?
Times, yeah. I was thinking about filming that and just filming short segments of it and being like, just watching the same conversation happen like 5 times and just you couldn't make it the whole conversation, but like
that you just different people asking the same question over and over
and just being like, this is what it is.
Do you tell them you're a comedian?
Sometimes, yes. Not all the time. It depends on I like talking about comedy. It's weird. I made this statement once. I think that you have officially become a comedian when you don't like telling people you're a comedian. I'm like, I can't stand telling people that I'm a comedian for the most part, but I'm like, I do like to talk about comedy. So like it will open that door, you know what I mean? And then sometimes I'm also, if we're talking comedy and I don't mention that I'm a comedian, it's kind of insane the amount of insight that I have for somebody that doesn't do it. So I kind of feel obligated to bring it up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, I think that's a big thing about being a comedian. Once you're a comedian, you don't like going out of your way to tell people it. You know what I mean? I remember when I first started, I was like, well, I am a comedian. And it's like, now I'm like, no. Like, I'll tell people as a function of what I do. Like, I mean, I don't want to lie to the people. You know what I mean? And it's like, granted, I'm totally an Uber driver. So I guess the part of me does identify as that. But I'm like, that's not what my personality identifies with. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, I don't want to lie to people and I don't want to go out of my way to not talk about myself if it's part of the conversation. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, you're getting to know somebody. Well, yes, but it's not like I want to open with that ever to be like, I'm a comedian, so what do you think about that? Yeah. It's like, ugh.
Oh, I've hated telling people I do comedy since day one.
Because you just get the same follow-up questions over and over. And, some of them you don't want to answer. And then some of them it's like, they ask you, they get into questions that they have no idea about, or they just say something that I'm going to use the finger quotes is just stupid. They'll be like, "Oh, have you thought about doing Last Comic Standing?" It's like, oh, do you think that I make the choice to not be on television? I always say it's like,
no, I don't want to do that because I am an artist.
Right. You know what I mean? It's like, I always, the analogy I came up with is it's like if you went up to like a college football player and you're like, hey, have you thought about playing for the national championship? Oh, well, fuck. Yeah, that's a great idea. Like,
why didn't we think about winning games and going to championships?
Yeah. I always remember my basketball coach in college once said, he was talking about this team we were playing. He goes, well, last time we played them, we lost by 4 points and we missed 18 free throws. He's like, so all we got to do is just make our free throws and we'll win the game. And my friend Joe looks at me and goes, and while we're at it, he's like, why don't we just win all of the games and win the national championship? I was like, that's a good idea, Joe.
Do you ever feel like a missed opportunity not promoting yourself a little bit to your customers? Like when you mention you're a comedian, do you feel like you have to follow up with like, and I'm also playing at this place? Because it sounds schlocky.
Yeah, I don't really care to mention it. No, I mean sometimes like like I said, if it's in the course of conversation, I'll do it. But I'm not trying to jam it down people's throat. Like plus I mean, I don't even know how many people have come to see me from driving Uber, but it's not that many. Yeah. I mean, it's really not. There is probably some people, but I'm like, it's not. I was thinking about having a featured artist, having a sign in the back of the chair of my driver's seat and say, today's featured artist is, and then feature a comedian for the day. And if they ask about, what's this featured artist thing? Be like, well, would you like to listen to their comedy? And just boom, you hit play.
You know what? Honestly, that is a huge thing that would help out in the community itself.
The one thing I don't like about the idea is...
You can't feature yourself?
Oh, no, not that. It's me. Again, is I have listened to comedy in the car with people, and there is a little bit of awkwardness to it from the standpoint of I feel like I'm putting pressure on them. Like, Yeah. So do you like this? Do you like this? Does it float your boat? You know what I mean? and then if it doesn't, it's just like, you know, like, oh, this guy sucks. And the guy doesn't suck. You know what I mean? He's a hilarious dude, whoever's on. And it's like,
But it's not their particular taste.
yeah. Or it's like,
Which they can't, nobody ever tells the difference between liking subjectively and something that's good or bad.
Or that's a good point. And the other thing too is it's, you know, is this person laughing only because I'm in the car with them, or like I don't know, it gets into a thing where like I feel like the person thinks that I'm judging whether they laugh or not, and that affects whether they laugh, whether, as opposed to if they organically just clicked on this clip on YouTube, which, by the way, we all know watching a clip on YouTube is not the same thing as going to a show.
No.
And that's the one thing I don't like about comedy on YouTube is people are like, oh yeah, that was kind of funny. It's like, no, that was fucking hilarious. And if you were there live, you would have understood it. You know what I mean? Like, so yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but they're just different mediums. I don't think I hate when YouTube people call themselves comedians when they don't do stand up on stage. I will agree with you. You can call yourself a comedic actor, but not a comedian personally. But it's also a different medium that has a different way of hitting people. So I don't fault YouTube people in general.
I guess you could say they are comedians the way that, you know, like an improv person is a comedian, but they just don't do stand up. You know what I mean? It's like, it's just a different type of comedy. So I don't know. I'm not offended by it, but I get your point. Yeah, it's not stand up. You know, and if they ever call themselves stand up comedians and they're only doing YouTube stuff, and when I say YouTube stuff, I'm excluding stand up on YouTube, but you know, they're doing some kind of weird hidden camera thing. Well, that's not stand up. You're not a stand up comedian. Maybe you're a stand up comedian and you also did that, but if that's just what you do, you're not a stand up comedian.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, and I know you want to get back to driving around and making money, so I appreciate you taking time out of your day to pop in and talk with me about it.
My landlord in the electric company is happy that I'm going to get back to doing that too. So
now I can't wait for you to tell somebody like, "Oh yeah, I'm a comedian," and then the subject of podcast coming like, "Well, I was on a podcast. You want to hear it?" And then play this episode of the podcast.
And it better be a trip to like Vermont. All right. Thanks for having me, man.
No, thanks for coming in. And so there you have it. That's my podcast with Don Zollo. I hope it was interesting and informative for you, especially if you take rideshare services. I don't. If I don't have to, which I don't have to ever at all. But real quick, I'll talk about this because I just got the email about it today. I will be doing the Charm City Comedy Festival the weekend of May the 12th. So I think actually Saturday, May 14th, I will be back in Baltimore doing comedy as part of the Charm City Comedy Festival. More information is coming in about that now, but I'm going to try and do as many shows as I can while I'm in the Baltimore, D.C., DMV area. So if anyone's listening who is in that area, check my website, Deadair Dennis. I'll have a bunch of dates posted where I'll be there for that. So I'm actually excited to get back down to Baltimore and hang out. Just take a little bit of vacation from my life here in Boston and go do nothing but tell comedy and be annoyed by my family. So, I like how the people running the comedy festival, when they sent these things like, oh, by the way, we have a special discount for people in the festival for this particular hotel. It's $150 a night. I'm like, yeah, I'm not paying $700 to stay in my own hometown. $750 to stay in my hometown. No, I'll stay with friends or family or find a cheaper hotel than $150 a night, which I'm not gonna do that either. No, I'll stay with family, and I'm going to be down there, so if there's any of my friends in the area, make plans with me ahead of time so we can figure out times to hang out, or you can come see me, tell some jokes and stuff. I'll probably definitely be at Drink to We're Funny on Sunday the 15th, because T-Brad's a good guy, and if you're in the Baltimore area or Timonium area, and if you want to go see comedy on Sunday, that's for free. Go to Drink to We're Funny at High Tops Backstage Grill in Timonium. That's a good show. I'll definitely be there probably that Sunday. If not telling jokes, just at least to hang out and say hi to the other Baltimore comedians that I know. I can't wait to get back down to DC. It's going to be good. No, I'm excited for this trip. Like, I just got to do comedy in Austin, Texas a couple weeks ago, and that was a great trip. Just 2 days in a whole new environment. At least now I'm going back to an environment that I know. I get to see people that I haven't seen in a while. Get to drink some glorious Natty Bow. But, Natty Bow. One thing I'll definitely not be doing is taking Ubers around. I'll probably just borrow a car from my mother and my sister. Because I have family, and that's what family's for. If you're in town from somewhere else and your family has cars, or if one of your family members is in town, you lend them your car. That's what family's for, right? Okay. Anyway, thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. If you wouldn't mind doing me a favor, this is your first time listening to podcasts, go ahead and subscribe to it if you're listening to it on iTunes or on Stitcher or Google Play, or if you're just going to the website, that's fine as well. But leave a comment if you're in one of those other aggregators and give it however many stars you feel is appropriate. It helps to share this podcast with more people. The more ratings it gets, the more they're going to share it out with people, and the more I can share my friends and other interesting people with other people. So if you enjoy it, I'm sure other people will, so be sure to tell somebody. All right, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot for listening. Bye.